Chapter 499. The heavenly tribulation was about to end and the demonic beasts that wanted to take advantage of her should be ready. He could not help with the tribulation transcendence and could only try his best to deal with these demonic beasts. Fortunately, the elixirs that Zhou Wan prepared were good. After 15 minutes, most of her injuries were healed. The tribulation cloud emitted the pressure of a divine beast. A moment later, a scarlet Wan divine bird with a wingspan of more than 100 feet dived down towards Zhou Wan with a large sea of fire. Zhou Wan also took out her natal dermic artifact. A scarlet Wan phantom with a sea of fire went up to meet it. At this moment, the scarlet Wan phantom was the original form of the dermic artifact and carried the power of a natal dermic artifact. After 9 golden core heavenly tribulations, Zhou Wan was already a true golden core cultivator. This scarlet Wan phantom also carried the power of a minor divine ability. The 2 scarlet Wans met and spat out scarlet flames. These flames were not condensed with ordinary fire attribute spirit energy. They seemed to contain a trace of spirit fire. The minor divine ability tribulation was exactly the same as the minor divine ability that a tribulation transcendence cultivator comprehended. It seemed that Zhou Wan's minor divine ability should be the legendary Scarlet Wan divine fire. In the future, with this minor divine ability, there was hope that she could condense spirit fire. The 2 Scarlet Wans were entangled in the air. Zhou Wan's dermic artifact was obviously weaker. The heavenly tribulation Scarlet Wan was obviously stronger and suppressed the dermic artifact. Zhou Wan injected all her spirit energy into the dermic artifact and drank a few mouthfuls of wine to replenish her spirit energy. At this moment, a purple light flickered between her eyebrows and there were even phoenix cries. She had even used her purple mansion resonance. When a cultivator underwent the tribulation transcendence, even if their quintessential essence and blood were exhausted, as long as they still had a breath of life, the gift of heaven and earth after the heavenly tribulation could completely restore them. However, the power of this minor divine ability tribulation was not weak. Zhou Wan tried her best but still could not resist it. The heavenly tribulation Scarlet Wan pressed the dermic artifact into the mouth of the volcano. Zhou Wan used her quintessential essence and blood to resist, but it only slowed down the heavenly tribulation Scarlet Wan's descent. After half a cup of tea's time, Zhou Wan's magical item's original form collapsed, and the heavenly tribulation Red Luan pounced on her. Sensing the collapse of a scarlet Wan phantom, Wang Daoyuan subconsciously wanted to rescue it. Just as he was about to enter the range of 15 kilometers, a bolt of blue-white lightning fell from the sky and struck less than a foot in front of him. This was a warning from the heavenly tribulation. He calmed down and stopped moving forward. In the crater of the volcano, Zhou Wan raised a spiritual energy shield to resist the flames of the heavenly tribulation Scarlet Wan. Her spiritual energy barrier was quickly burned through by the flames, and the flames burned her body. She was also very ambitious. At the same time, she continued to refine the tribulation divine flames. 15 minutes later, the divine flames of the heavenly tribulation were gradually extinguished. The pressure of the tribulation clouds also disappeared, and the dark clouds in the sky turned into golden auspicious clouds. The golden core heavenly tribulation was considered to have passed. If he had failed to transcend the tribulation clouds would have dispersed. Looking at the auspicious clouds in the sky, Zhou Wan had succeeded. Wang Daoyuan immediately rushed to the mouth of the volcano. Zhou Wan, who was in front of him, was almost burnt to a crisp. However, there was still a weak vitality in the charred remains. Wang Daoyuan took out the azure dragon pearl and activated it with all his strength. Rays of emerald green light shone on Zhou Wan. The vitality in Zhou Wan's body rapidly increased, but her injuries were too serious. It was impossible for her to completely recover with the power of the azure dragon pearl alone. Soon, golden raindrops fell from the sky and poured into the crater of the volcano. Most of the raindrops fell on Zhou Wan's body. Receiving the nourishment of the gifts of heaven and earth, Zhou Wan's condition quickly improved. Her originally charred body quickly recovered. A heavenly tribulation made her already thin clothes even worse. As a gentleman, Wang Daoyuan would definitely not look at indecent things. After a dozen breaths, he felt that his qi and blood were a little unstable, and his nose was a little hot. After body refinement, his physical body had become stronger, but the impact of his qi and blood had also become stronger. He took out a forbidden spirit's silk cloak and covered Zhou Wan. Then, he left the crater of the volcano. The gifts of heaven and earth were fatally attractive to all living creatures. There would definitely be shameless demonic beasts who wanted to take advantage of the situation. Wang Daoyuan also received some gifts from heaven and earth. He felt refreshed and his spiritual power was purer. Even his soul and body had some improvements. In the future, if he encountered an enemy in the core formation realm, he could rob them. After half a cup of tea's time, a sound similar to a phoenix's cry came from the north. It was just that the sound was really unpleasant, as if a phoenix had swallowed a gravel in its throat. It gave off an extremely fierce feeling. It seemed that the visitor was not friendly. Not long after, a fourth-rank low-grade bird that looked like a phoenix but had no tail feathers appeared 100 miles away. It was a white and black low-grade bird with a hint of black. From 100 miles away, Wang Daoyuan could already feel the pressure. The strange bird spoke in human language. The person transcending the tribulation is also a beauty with the phoenix bloodline. She can be my princess. Upon hearing this, Wang Daoyuan was displeased. A mongrel chicken dared to steal his woman. Even if he was a man, he wouldn't tolerate it. He opened his mouth and cursed, "Where did this mongrel chicken come from? Get out of my way." The strange bird was also furious. It had the phoenix bloodline, but it was too thin and couldn't grow a crown or long feathers. It looked a bit like a pheasant. It usually liked to hear other demonic beasts call it a phoenix. Now that it was being scolded by a Zifu Realm Junior, how could it not be angry? It transformed into a young man wearing a black and white robe. There were no traces of a demonic beast on him. His transformation was quite successful. It rushed towards Wang Daoyuan and said angrily, "Where did this wild brat come from? How dare you look down on the Phoenix clan?" Wang Daoyuan transformed his spiritual power into spiritual fire and took out the vermilion bird fan. He said disdainfully, "Your tail isn't even as long as an old hen. How dare you call yourself a phoenix? Shameless." The strange bird waved its hand and shot out a few ice swords, which went straight for Wang Daoyuan. It seemed casual, but it was comparable to an attack from an early-stage golden core cultivator. It would be very difficult for an ordinary cultivator at the peak of the Zifu realm to receive it. However, Wang Daoyuan had the spiritual fire, so it was easy for him to deal with the ice attribute magic. The scarlet yang true fire was still burning in the lava lake below the volcano. He waved the vermilion bird fan and the golden flames in the lava lake rushed out and wrapped around the ice swords. Even if it was an attack from a fourth-stage demonic beast, it wouldn't be able to withstand the might of the spiritual fire. Moreover, the spiritual fire was backed by a fourth-stage mid-grade fire spiritual vein. The ice swords quickly melted. Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "Bald chicken, listen to my advice and get out of here. Otherwise, I'll make you into a roasted chicken." A fourth-stage low-grade roasted chicken is also a delicacy. The strange bird was unable to restrain its anger and continuously shot out ice attribute magic. However, a sea of fire with a radius of more than 15 kilometers had already appeared between Wang Daoyuan and it. The sea of fire was controlled by the vermilion bird fan, so the pressure on Wang Daoyuan's spirit wasn't too great. Even if he couldn't control it, it would only damage the vermilion bird fan. His spirit wouldn't be affected. With the lava of the volcano as its backing, the sea of fire was still expanding. The fire attribute countered the ice attribute to begin with. Against the endless spiritual fire, unless one's strength was absolutely overwhelming. Otherwise, any ice attribute magic would be useless. The strange bird transformed into its original form, a gigantic bird with a wingspan of more than 3,000 feet. It was covered in thick ice armor and wanted to forcefully fly through the sea of fire. Wang Daoyuan summoned all 4 of his destiny dermic weapons and even condensed the phantom of the Kirin seal. The strange bird could tell that his dermic weapons were extraordinary and immediately retreated from the sea of fire. It circled around the edge of the sea of fire, trying to go around it and enter the volcano. Wang Daoyuan used the sea of fire to envelop the entire volcano. The strange bird wouldn't be able to come down until all its feathers were burned off. On the other hand, the golden raindrops weren't affected by the flames at all. They passed through the sea of fire without any damage. This strange bird was also a coward. After being in a stalemate for a quarter of an hour, it still didn't dare to charge into the sea of fire. The gift of heaven and earth was still continuing, and Zhou Wan's aura was also getting stronger. At this time, bird chirps and beast roars came from the north and east. Wang Daoyuan's heart sank. They were going to be surrounded by fourth-stage demonic beasts. At this time, Zhou Wan hadn't woken up. It was impossible to escape with Zhou Wan. With his speed, there was no way he could escape the pursuit of the fourth-stage strange bird. Besides, the gift of heaven and earth hadn't ended yet. He didn't dare to rashly take Zhou Wan away. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if the damage caused by the heavenly tribulation wasn't completely healed. He could only stay here and wait for her to wake up before letting her take him away. Chapter 500. At this moment, the golden clouds above the snow dragon volcano began to weaken rapidly. Wang Daoyuan suddenly heard Zhou Wan's voice. "Lure it in, let's kill this mixed feathered bald-tailed chicken." Even though the demon race had reached the 4th rank, their consciousness was still far inferior to that of humans. The strange bird did not notice the two's divine consciousness transmissions. The demon beasts and demon birds in the distance were about to arrive. There was not much time to set up a trap. He had to kill this guy as soon as possible and escape immediately. If he escaped now, he would be entangled by this strange bird. Wang Daoyuan pretended to be exhausted and put away all the magic artifacts except the vermilion bird fan. The entire sea of fire was also somewhat out of control. The strange bird looked at the golden clouds that were getting thinner and was also somewhat anxious. When the golden clouds dissipated and the person undergoing the tribulation recovered, it was not confident that it could deal with a golden core cultivator. Seeing that Wang Daoyuan was somewhat exhausted, it became excited. A peak Zifu cultivator controlling 4 magic artifacts at the same time, and controlling such a large sea of fire, he should have been unable to hold on long ago. It wrapped itself in ice armor and charged into the sea of fire, attacking Wang Daoyuan. When the strange bird was about a mile away from Wang Daoyuan, Zhou Wan's body was wrapped in flames and transformed into a scarlet one divine bird, soaring into the sky. The pressure of a divine beast swept out. The strange bird only had a little bit of the phoenix bloodline. How could it face the scarlet one? It immediately changed direction and fled to the side. The vermilion bird fan in Wang Daoyuan's hand shone brightly, and the flames of the entire sea of fire surged towards the strange bird. The scarlet one that Zhou Wan transformed into also had some ability to control flames. The golden sea of fire was brought up by her waves of flames, chasing after the strange bird. The strange bird knew that it was no match for her, and a burst of blood chi and vital essence appeared on its body, followed by a burst of speed. This was a secret escape technique that consumed vital essence and blood chi. Although Zhou Wan transformed into a scarlet one, she was still a human cultivator. In terms of escaping, she could not compare to the strange bird, and was quickly left behind. She withdrew the flames on her body and summoned her scarlet one flowing flame sword, slashing towards the strange bird. The flying sword was extremely fast. Carrying a large amount of golden flames, it slashed at the back of the strange bird. This strange bird was worthy of having the bloodline of the phoenix. Its physical body was not weak. The sword only left a deep wound on its back. The golden clouds formed by the tribulation clouds had yet to dissipate, and golden rain continued to fall. However, the figures of demonic beasts had already appeared in the north and east. The two of them did not dare to stay any longer. Zhou Wan withdrew her natal dermic artifact and an auspicious cloud appeared beneath her feet. She carried Wang Daoyuan and fled towards the southwest. Wang Daoyuan continued to wave his vermilion bird fan to extract spiritual energy from the crimson golden flames in the sky. After absorbing the spiritual energy into his body, he continuously sent it into the space of the spiritual pearl. Unfortunately, there were simply too many flames. He had only absorbed a small portion of it, and the auspicious cloud under his feet had already flown 100 miles away. Without his control, the remaining flames began to quickly extinguish. On the other hand, the flames in the lava lake below the volcano could still burn for a while if they were not disturbed. Wang Daoyuan looked behind him. 5 huge demonic beasts flew above the volcano. They did not chase after the two of them. Instead, they were fighting over the remaining golden raindrops. Soon, some demonic beasts also flew over on their clouds and fought with the demonic beasts. Wang Daoyuan heaved a sigh of relief. Looking at Zhou Wan's few remaining clothes, he coughed lightly and said, "Hall Master, you should wear some clothes." Previously, when she transformed into the Scarlet Wan, her body was burning with raging flames. After all, the soul-forbidding silk was only a second-tier material. How could it withstand the flames of a small divine ability? It had already turned into nothingness. The clothes on Zhou Wan's body were the remnants of the lightning tribulation. Zhou Wan smiled lightly. "Didn't you even think about what the child would be called? Why are you embarrassed now?" After she formed her core, a faint red flame mark appeared between her eyebrows. Her skin was faintly shining. The Scarlet Wan's charm had not been completely restrained. Coupled with this smile, it was even more charming. Her clothes were still untidy. Wang Daoyuan's blood was boiling. He only felt his nose heat up. He hurriedly cast a rejuvenation technique on his nose, took out a cloak, and put it on Zhou Wan. "I'm a gentleman. Naturally, I won't peek. I'm afraid of being seen by despicable people." Zhou Wan mocked, "A gentleman won't peek. But you're a lecher. As a body refinement cultivator, you can still have a nosebleed. That's all you've got." Wang Daoyuan was about to argue when an earth-shattering sound came from behind. The two of them looked back and saw the volcano behind them spewing out a large amount of lava. The lava also contained the corpses of several 4th-tier demonic beasts. He reckoned that these few demonic beasts were really angry and fought their way into the mouth of the volcano. The lava lake below the volcano had been burned by Wang Daoyuan with spiritual fire for half a year. This time, dealing with the strange bird had used up a large amount of spiritual power. It had become unstable. How could it withstand the battle of a group of 4th-tier demonic beasts? The volcano's body collapsed and the earth was shaking. Cracks spread out in all directions from the volcano. Lava also gushed out of the cracks. The demonic beasts nearby panicked and fled desperately. With such a huge commotion, it was very likely to trigger a huge beast tide. This place was still very far away from the Huiyan mountain range. The beast tide might not affect the Guiyan market. However, the relationship between the demons and half-demons in the north of the mountain was very subtle. This beast tide might cause a full-scale conflict between the demons and half-demons. The two of them did not care about these things for the time being. After flying for more than 2,000 miles, Zhou Wan put away the auspicious cloud and took out the Scarlet Wan flying boat. After all, it was too ostentatious to ride on an auspicious cloud. With the volcano erupting in the north, they did not have the leisure to sightsee. Driving the flying boat, they headed straight for the Guiyan market. The two of them returned to the Guiyan market as if nothing had happened and entered the underground division. Near the extreme cold ice plains, the demonic beasts fighting caused the volcano to erupt. What did it have to do with the two of them? Returning to Zhou Wan's cave residence, Wang Daoyuan continued to stay in the front yard of the cave residence, recalling the power of the heavenly tribulation. Especially the last minor divine ability tribulation, which contained the law of fire. He was a cultivator of the 5 elements and needed to comprehend the law of the 5 elements. If he could comprehend the law of fire, the other 4 laws would be a matter of course. Zhou Wan returned to the backyard and freshened up. Then, she walked out wearing thrifty clothes with her hair tied up in a high ponytail. Wang Daoyuan hurriedly fawned over her. "Lord Hall Master, this subordinate would like to ask about the law of fire." "What do you think?" Zhou Wan said with a smile, "Of course, no problem. Come to my boudoir and we can discuss it slowly." Wang Daoyuan sternly refused. I'm a gentleman, how can I casually enter your boudoir? I think this place is quite good. We can discuss it here. Zhou Wan said mockingly, didn't you say you wanted to come to my boudoir to protect me? I have no objections now. Do you dare to come? Of course, Wang Daoyuan did not dare. Before Zhou Wan formed her core, she needed to keep her primordial yin to increase the success rate of forming her core. It was fine to tease her. Now that she had formed her core, losing her primordial yin was not a big deal. But he was still in the core formation stage, so he had to endure it. There was no other way. Now, his offense and defense had changed. Not only did he not dare to tease Zhou Wan, but he also had to face Zhou Wan's teasing. Moreover, Zhou Wan had awakened a minor divine ability and her strength had increased greatly. She was far from being comparable to ordinary early-stage golden core cultivators. This bit of ability of his was simply not enough. There was no other way. In order to comprehend the law of fire, he could only compromise. After saying all kinds of nice things, Zhou Wan used her minor divine ability and condensed a small flame. She handed the flame to Wang Daoyuan and teased, Lord Vice Hall Master, the flame condensed by this divine ability is very dangerous. Do you want me to protect you? Sure enough, sooner or later, you would have to pay for what you did. Just like how he teased Zhou Wan in the past, now he was being teased in the same way. Wang Daoyuan took the flame, took out a few jars of spiritual peach stew, and answered obediently, Lord Hall Master is very busy, but you still took time out of your busy schedule to help me comprehend the law of fire. I'm very grateful. Please accept these jars of wine as a token of my respect. Chapter 501. Zhou Wan took the wine jar with satisfaction and smiled, you know your place. If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to come to my room and ask me. I will answer with all my heart. Although Wang Daoyuan did not want to go over even if he was beaten to death, he still said that he would do it. Now that he was being suppressed by Zhou Wan, he had no choice but to lower his head. Zhou Wan carried the wine jar and arrogantly returned to the backyard. Wang Daoyuan continued to inject wood attribute spirit energy into the flame. His fire attribute spirit energy had the characteristics of the Scarlet Sun True Fire. If he used fire attribute spirit energy, the rootless flame would quickly be assimilated. Among the 5 elements, wood gave birth to fire. Using wood attribute spirit energy could also maintain the fire attribute spirit energy. Although it would not burn too vigorously, it would not change the characteristics of the rootless flame. He used his divine sense to probe the flame and carefully felt the fire laws. His own Scarlet Sun True Fire was a 3rd-level upper-grade spirit fire. The fire laws were not obvious, and the difficulty of comprehending them was higher. This flame was condensed from Zhou Wan's small divine ability. It was considered a 4th-level lower-grade rootless flame. The fire laws were more obvious, and the effect of comprehending them was better. He compared the rootless flame with the Scarlet Sun True Fire. In just half a year, he had a preliminary feeling of the fire laws. Fire was the most destructive and violent attribute among the 5 elements. Fire elemental spells all followed the same principle, which emphasized the instantaneous eruption of a huge amount of power. Of course, this was only the simplest comprehension. Core formation only required these simple comprehensions. Starting from the Jindan stage, the path of cultivation could not be separated from the comprehension of the laws. As one's cultivation increased, the requirement for comprehension would also be higher. The Jindan stage only had comprehension of the laws, and used it as a basis to modify techniques. At a higher level, one had to directly use the power of the laws. Everything was difficult at the beginning. After comprehending the fire laws, it would be much easier to comprehend other laws. He wanted to continue comprehending, but Jiang Jingming sent him a message saying that there was an important matter that he needed him to do personally. He could not reject it. After all, he had the position of Guiyan City Square's guardian. Before core formation, he still had to be a monk ringing the bell. If he were to neglect his duties, he would definitely be punished. After bidding farewell to Zhou Wan, he left the underground branch, took a big detour, and returned to the underworld sect station. After entering the encampment, Jiang Jingming immediately took out a beast skin book and said, "Steward Wang, this is the account book of all the matters I've dealt with over the years. Please take a look." Wang Daoyuan took the account book and flipped through it briefly. He then checked the treasury and found no problems. He nodded and said, "Elder Jiang is indeed a capable person. These few years, when handling the branch's affairs, there were no oversights. Is there anything important that requires me to deal with personally?" Jiang Jingming replied, "Have you heard of the major event that happened to the south of the Arctic icy plains?" Wang Daoyuan was naturally well aware of this, but he would never admit it verbally. With a puzzled expression, he asked, "What happened to the south of the Arctic icy plains?" "I've been cultivating in Huiyan Mountain all this time, so I didn't care about anything else." Jiang Jingming continued, "About half a year ago, the snow dragon volcano 20,000 miles to the south of the Arctic icy plains erupted, and caused a violent earthquake. All the demons within 10,000 miles were affected, and a large beast tide was triggered. These few years, the demons and half-demons were at odds with each other, and the beast tide destroyed many half-demon tribes. This made the situation even more tense. At first, they were fighting in secret, but now they've started to act. Furthermore, the Jin Dan half-demons and fourth-rank demons are more restrained, so there hasn't been an all-out conflict yet. However, if this continues, an all-out war is unavoidable. Now, both sides want to rope in the underworld sect. This time, they want to meet with you and ask about your attitude. The time is 3 days later, and the location is at the Huiyan Pavilion in the center of the market." Wang Daoyuan nodded and didn't say anything, but his heart wasn't calm. The situation he was most worried about had happened. Once the two sides clashed, he would be cannon fodder. 3 days later, Wang Daoyuan brought Jiang Jingming and a foreign Zifu elder to the Huiyan Pavilion in the center of the market. The location of the meeting was on the 3rd floor of the Huiyan Pavilion. Wang Daoyuan led the two Violet Mansion elders to the 3rd floor and entered the main hall. A silver-haired Violet Palace Realm half-demon sat on the main seat with two early-stage Violet Palace Realm half-demons beside him. On the right was a peak Violet Palace Realm half-demon with black hair and red eyes. There were also two early-stage Violet Palace Realm half-demons beside him. The Huiyan Pavilion was the property of the Silver Fox tribe, so the one sitting on the main seat should be someone from the Silver Fox tribe. Wang Daoyuan brought the two to the left and sat down. Then, he cupped his hands and said, "May I know why the two of you have invited me here?" The silver-haired half-demon smiled, "I'm the Silver Fox tribe's Grand Elder, who you?" "I'm the representative of the half-demons." He then pointed at the red-eyed half-demon and said, "This is Dao Yu, Tsangyan. He's the representative of the demon race." For a Violet Palace realm meeting like this, the demon race would send their subordinate half-demons. After all, third-rank demons couldn't take human form and couldn't speak the human language, so they couldn't discuss matters. As for fourth-rank demons, their status wasn't on the same level. Therefore, they sent their subordinate half-demons. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, "I'm Wang Daoyuan, the guardian of the Huiyan Pavilion." "Greetings, Dao Yu. Fellow Taoists, what do you want to discuss with me? Let's get straight to the point." Hu Yu smiled. "Dao Yu is indeed a straightforward person, so I'll be direct. The eruption of the snow dragon volcano caused the demon beasts to flee and we half-demons suffered heavy losses. Since the demon race attacked first, we naturally can't just sit and wait for our deaths. Now that the conflict between the demon race and half-demons is inevitable, I wonder what the underworld sect stance is?" Wang Daoyuan chuckled. "What does the matter between you half-demons and the demon race have to do with my underworld sect? My underworld sect only has a few shops in the southern part of the Huiyan Pavilion. Apart from that, we don't have any other property. We're just doing business here. If the two of you want to fight, why should we take sides?" Tsangyan finally spoke. It said that the eruption of the snow dragon volcano was caused by a human undergoing the Golden Core heavenly tribulation there. Since the culprit is the human race, don't think you can get away with it. Wang Daoyuan mocked him. "Tsangyan, what does Dao Yu think my underworld sect is? The highest commander of the human race? My underworld sect only occupies 1/3 of Zhao, which is just a drop in the ocean compared to the entire Beiyuan Shoshin. How can we have the power to control all the human race's affairs? You also admitted that the human race caused the eruption of the snow dragon volcano, but that's just hearsay. There's no real evidence. Dao Yu wants to force my underworld sect to take sides with such baseless words. Isn't that too overbearing? Hu Yu also asked, Dao Yu means that the underworld sect doesn't care about the conflict between the half-demons and the demon race. Wang Daoyuan replied, my underworld sect's attitude towards the north of the mountain has always been to do business and not get involved in the affairs of the north. Naturally, we don't want the two of you to fall out, which will affect our business. If you insist on fighting, we won't get involved. We'll just switch to another person to do business with. Sangyun didn't give up and asked aggressively, this eruption was caused by the human race. The demon race also suffered heavy losses. Dao Yu wants to get away with it? You underestimate us too much. Wang Daoyuan also gave tit for tat, the matter of the rogue cultivators has nothing to do with my underworld sect. However, the Snow God Palace in the northwest is one of the 4 top forces of the human race and can represent all the human race. If you have any opinions, you can go to the Snow God Palace and ask for an explanation. Sangyun had nothing to say. They didn't dare to provoke the Snow God Palace. After all, those people were good at suppressing aquatic demons. If the demon race dared to go there, they would be killed. Seeing that Wang Daoyuan didn't want to get involved, Hu Yu was a little disappointed. I wonder if the underworld sect can continue to do business with us half-demons? Chapter 502. Wang Daoyuan thought for a moment and replied, there's no problem with doing business, our underworld sect is here to do business. It's just what can be sold and what can't. As a guardian, I can't make the decision and have to ask the sect master. I'll send a message to the sect master and report this matter. The sect master and the elders need time to discuss this matter. When they send a message, I'll inform your 2 families. How about it? Hu Yu nodded, expressing that she had no objections. On the other hand, Sangyun wanted to say something, but Wang Daoyuan completely ignored him. This guy was a subordinate half-demon of the demon race. After staying with a group of demon beasts for a long time, his brain was not clear. When the 2 sides were looking for help, he still dared to be arrogant. Did he really think that the demon race was stronger than the human race? In ancient times, the human race was a strong race that could compare to the divine beasts. These mixed demon beasts were nothing. It was only after the formation of heaven-ending abyss that cultivation realms were limited. The human race did not live as long as the demon race, which was why they had the advantage. Wang Daoyuan was leaning towards helping the half-demons. After all, half-demons could marry humans. As long as the human race had the advantage in numbers, they could quickly assimilate the half-demons. Forget about the demon race. Only demon race level 4 and above could marry humans and give birth to half-demons. The human race could not assimilate the demon race. It was better to suppress them as much as possible. If the half-demons and demon race fought, as long as it did not implicate Shannon, it did not matter. He brought the 2 Zifu realm cultivators and left Wild returning to the underworld sect. Then, he sent a message to Luo Jiuyo, reporting the situation here. The next day, Luo Jiuyo replied. His attitude was similar to Wang Daoyuan's, pulling the line between the half-demons and the demon race. To the half-demons, all resources were sold. To the demon race, just selling some things was enough. Wang Daoyuan gave the 2 families the same conditions, only selling basic talismans and pills. This was already a little unfair to both sides. Anyone could eat pills, but it was difficult for demons to use talismans. However, basic talismans were not strong, they could still accept it. Wang Daoyuan told Hu Yu in private that he was willing to sell magic tools and some other things. However, it all depended on the half-demon's ability to deceive the demons. After dealing with this major issue, the remaining small matters would be left to Jiang Jingming to deal with. After staying in the station for several days, Wang Daoyuan left once more and returned to the underground branch. He entered Zhou Wan's cave dwelling and continued to comprehend other laws. With the law of fire as a reference, he also had the 5 elemental spiritual fire to study. It only took him about a year to comprehend the laws of earth, metal, water, and wood according to the order of the 5 elements. Now, he could form his gold core at any moment. However, core formation had an extremely high requirement for spiritual qi. At the very least, one had to have a spiritual vein of the 4th level or a heavenly material and earthly treasure. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to form his gold core if he didn't have enough spiritual qi. In particular, he had an acquired spirit body. Various ancient books only mentioned acquired spirit bodies, but did not give a detailed introduction. He also couldn't be sure what kind of trouble would occur during the core formation. In the entire Beiyuan Xiuxian, there were very few places suitable for him to form his gold core. Perfected Lei Yan also said that he should go to the Treasure Tripod Mountain to form his gold core. The Treasure Tripod Mountain had an upper grade level, for non-elemental spirit vein, and the spirit qi there was close to level 5. Naturally, forming his gold core would not be a problem. Now, he could not openly go to the Treasure Tripod Mountain. He was the guardian of the Guiyan market. If he left openly, he would be leaving his post without permission. If he informed Luo Jiuyo, that bastard would not agree. It was better to leave secretly. In the past year, the situation in Shanbei had become more chaotic. The conflict between demons and half-demons had intensified. However, wars in the cultivation world were especially long. From the conflict to the end of the war, it was not strange that it would take hundreds of years. In addition, the demons and half-demons were divided into groups and tribes, each occupying a piece of land. Shanbei was not as rich in spirit qi as the sky/mountain range. The demons and half-demons were very scattered and there was no unified upper echelon. Even if there was an all-out war, it would be between the neighboring demons and half-demons. However, in 100 to 200 years, there would be no clear winner. As long as the underworld sect did not take the initiative to interfere, the fire would not reach Shanbei within 100 years. However, he still had to make some preparations. Wang Daoyuan walked to the backyard of the cave abode and entered Zhou Wan's boudoir. The furnishings inside were simple. There was a carved wooden bed and a long offering table. There were flowers and spirit fruits on the table. In addition, there was a square table and a few chairs. Seeing him walk in, Zhou Wan smiled and asked, "Deputy Hall Master, why did you dare to come in? Have you given up resisting?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "Would rather die than surrender. How can I give up resisting? Now that I have comprehended the 5 elemental laws, I am going to the Treasure Tripod Mountain of the Divine Weapon Pavilion to form my core. Before I leave, there are some things I need to tell you." Then, he took out a jade talisman and said, "This is a communication jade talisman to contact the underworld sect. Now, Jiang Jingming is taking care of the daily affairs for me. If he has something he can't solve, he will use the communication jade talisman to contact me. You can just reply for me. Hall Master, you are very smart. Isn't it a piece of cake to fool Jiang Jingming? Also, if something happens to the north of the mountain, it will affect the south of the mountain. Hall Master, please take care of our clan." Zhou Wan took the communication jade talisman and said, "It's just a small matter. It won't be a problem. With your temperament, after forming your core, I'm afraid you will still go to the southern wasteland to look for the essence of earth, right?" Wang Daoyuan nodded and said, "After forming my core, it will be very difficult for me to find time to go to the southern wasteland. I'd better take this opportunity to get the essence of earth back. With all 5 of my natal magic tools, I won't be afraid of anyone in the underworld sect." Zhou Wan was silent for a long time before she said, "You must come back alive." Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "Don't worry. After being teased by you for so long, I still haven't taken my revenge. I will definitely come back in one piece. When the time comes, I will let you know how powerful I am." After chatting with Zhou Wan for a long time, he disguised himself and left the Guiyan Market Square for the Qingli Market Square. Although there was a shop of the Divine Weapon Pavilion in the Guiyan Market Square, the scale was small and there was no flying boat directly to the treasured Cauldron Mountain. The person in charge of the Divine Weapon Pavilion was He Yuanqing's disciple and would not leak the information. It would be difficult for the underworld sect to detect them if they left the Qingli Market Square. The operation went smoothly. They successfully boarded the flying boat of the Divine Weapon Pavilion and left the territory of the underworld sect. 20 days later, they arrived at the treasured Cauldron Mountain. When they arrived at the door of their master's cave, the old man was overjoyed and quickly called Wang Daoyuan into the cave. He used his spiritual sense to examine Wang Daoyuan's cultivation and nodded. "You have really cultivated to the peak of the Violet Palace realm. It has only been 10 years since you left here. This cultivation speed has surpassed most of the heavenly spiritual roots. With your perception and my guidance, you will definitely not need 10 years to comprehend the 5 elemental laws. You are only 190 years old now. Even after 10 years, you will only be 200 years old. It is very difficult for a 200 years old Golden Core Realm cultivator with a heavenly spiritual root." Wang Daoyuan condensed a ball of red sun primordial fire in his hand and used his spiritual sense to control the flame. Without increasing the input of spiritual power, the flame's height increased by half an inch. The Thunderflame Taoist master was stunned. Then, he asked in surprise, "You have comprehended the fire elemental laws?" Wang Daoyuan nodded and replied, "I have comprehended the 5 elemental laws. My physical body and true essence are sufficient. I can form my core now." The Thunderflame Taoist master was overjoyed. "I have really picked up a treasure. In 10 years, you have broken through to the Golden Core realm from the late stage of the Violet Palace realm. Even in the ancient times when spiritual qi was abundant, it was still a rare existence." After he finished speaking, he took out a storage bag and handed it to Wang Daoyuan. "This is what I have prepared for you. When the innate spiritual body forms the core, other than the 9 golden core lightning tribulations, there will also be the 5 elemental lightning tribulations. You have the acquired 5 elemental spiritual body, so I am not sure if there will be the 5 elemental lightning tribulations. However, since you have refined the 5 elemental spiritual fire, you have to be careful." Wang Daoyuan took the storage bag and opened it. He sighed inwardly. Master is so generous. Chapter 503. Wang Daoyuan opened the storage pouch and saw that it was full of magic tools. Among them, there were 4 low-grade 4th-rank magic tools and 3 mid-grade 4th-rank magic tools. These magic tools were all defensive magic tools made of high-quality materials. The 3 mid-grade 4th-rank magic tools were all shields. The smallest one was a round shield with a diameter of more than 3 meters. Master really loves his disciple. According to the strength of Zhou Wan's core formation heavenly tribulation, these things wouldn't be a problem at all to deal with the 9 core formation heavenly tribulations. Low-grade 4th-rank magic tools were enough to withstand the first 6 lightning bolts. With 3 mid-grade 4th-rank magic tools, it wouldn't be hard for them to withstand the last 3 lightning bolts. Below the magic tools was a bottle of low-grade 4th-rank medicinal pills with the words, "Blood Essence Heaven Returning Pill," written on the bottle. Wang Daoyuan had only heard of this medicinal pill before. It was refined with the blood essence of 4th-rank demon beasts or vicious beasts as the main ingredient. It was also the only type of 4th-rank healing medicinal pill that could be refined in large quantities. After consuming it, it would only take a quarter of an hour to completely refine it. It was very suitable for tribulation transcendence. However, Wang Daoyuan had the Azure Dragon Pearl, so this medicinal pill would only have a supplementary effect. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, "Many thanks, Master. But isn't this a bit too much? There were 9 core formation heavenly tribulations, and I could withstand the first 6 with magic." Unexpectedly, Master Lei Yen took out a large earth yellow seal and said, "There's no harm in being prepared. Who knows whether or not you'll encounter the 5 elements tribulation. This is a thick earth seal that I refined by imitating the Kirin seal. If you really do encounter the 5 elements tribulation, ordinary magic tools won't be able to help. This thing can temporarily replace the Kirin seal. This thick earth seal was low-grade 4th rank. Its main ingredient was thick earth mystic crystal, and its tool pattern was also quite similar to the Kirin seal. However, it wasn't a life-bound magic tool and couldn't be integrated into the 5 elements heaven-suppressing seal. If used to unleash the Kirin seal's accompanying magic, the power it could unleash was definitely higher than that of mid-grade 4th rank magic tools. Seeing his master take out another magic tool, Wang Daoyuan was a bit embarrassed. He had thought of all the things he hadn't thought of. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Master, this is enough. My body is strong, and I have refined the 5 elemental spiritual fire. If there is really a 5 elemental tribulation, I can withstand it." Taoist Lei Yen smiled. "These are all the works I made when I was studying the art of refining. They're just worldly possessions, not worth mentioning. You already have 4 intrinsic Dharma artifacts. It's impossible for you to comprehend the charm of the 5 elements divine beasts in a short period of time. However, these 4 magic tools had to be refined to at least the upper grade of the 3rd rank. Otherwise, you won't be of any help when dealing with the heavenly tribulation." Wang Daoyuan had made preparations long ago. The vermilion bird fan and azure dragon bead were both high-grade rank 3 items right after they were refined. When his cultivation had just reached the late stage of the Violet Palace realm, the white tiger blade had also been forged into a 3rd-tier high-grade weapon. As for the black tortoise shield, when it was first refined, it was only a mid-grade tier 3 magic artifact, but after many years of nurturing, it had become a high-grade tier 3 magic artifact not long ago. With 4 upper-grade tier 3 natal dharma artifacts, the power of the 5 elements devil vanquishing seal was greater than the all-out attack of an ordinary early-stage golden core cultivator. By the time he underwent the tribulation, he would have already formed his golden core. When he used the 5 elements devil vanquishing seal at that time, its power would definitely surpass the all-out attack of an ordinary mid-stage golden core cultivator. The heavenly tribulation was a test for cultivators and they couldn't just focus on killing themselves. The strongest attack would at most have the power of a mid-stage golden core cultivator. Using the 5 elements devil vanquishing seal would definitely be able to withstand it. Of course, there was only one chance and it couldn't be used in advance. Wang Daoyuan replied, "Master, don't worry. All 4 of my natal dharma artifacts have already reached the upper grade of the 3rd rank." Perfected Thunderflame took out a jade slip and said, "That's good. This is my insight on forming my golden core. Take a look. Don't move around in my cave abode. I'll go ask the Pavilion Master for permission to borrow the Heavenly Tribulation Valley of the Divine Weapon Pavilion." With that, he left the cave abode. Wang Daoyuan also took advantage of this time to claim ownership of the newly obtained Dharma artifacts. Half a day later, Perfected Thunderflame returned to the cave abode with a smile. Wang Daoyuan hurriedly bowed and said, "Greetings, Master. Seeing how happy you are, does the Pavilion Master agree to let me borrow the Heavenly Tribulation Valley?" Perfected Thunderflame smiled. "That's right. My opponents weren't around today. I mentioned this to the Pavilion Master and he agreed. I even went to the Heavenly Tribulation Valley to clean it up. If you're ready, you can start forming your golden core at any time." Wang Daoyuan replied, "Thank you, Master. I'm ready and can form my golden core now." Perfected Thunderflame nodded. "All right, follow me." Bringing Wang Daoyuan with him, Perfected Thunderflame left the Treasured Cauldron Mountain and headed west. 100 li west of the Treasured Cauldron Mountain was a valley that spanned more than 50 li from north to south and 10 li from east to west. This mountain was connected to the spirit vein of the Treasured Cauldron Mountain and the concentration of spirit chi was also at the upper grade of the 4th rank. This was the Heavenly Tribulation Valley of the Divine Weapon Pavilion that was specially used for cultivators to break through their tribulations. Because formations would cause the Heavenly Tribulation to intensify, there were no formations in the Heavenly Tribulation Valley. Usually, there were only a few Zifu realm cultivators standing guard here. The concentration of spirit qi here made it a good place for cultivation. Now that they heard that someone was undergoing a tribulation, the guards all gathered outside the valley to watch the show. Perfected Thunderflame pointed at a stone altar in the middle of the valley. That stone altar is the best place to undergo the tribulation. You can go there. Wang Daoyuan nodded and flew towards the stone altar on his sword. After landing, he sat cross-legged in the middle of the stone altar. Following the methods recorded in the various core formation insights, he began to condense the true essence in his body. Ever since the foundation establishment stage, cultivators had been constantly increasing the quantity and quality of their liquefied true essence. Now, it was time to take another step forward. Circulating the 5-spirit immortal transformation art, the liquefied true essence in his dantian condensed and compressed, forming a colorless, transparent water ball that was about 5 inches in diameter. At the same time, it continuously absorbed spirit qi from the outside world, refining it into the 5 elements and condensing it into true essence, fusing it into the transparent water ball and compressing it. The concentration of spirit qi here was enough for him to absorb for the time being. No spirit qi whirlpool appeared. Only a weak wind of spirit qi formed around him. The liquefied true essence kept increasing and compressing, the entire transparent water ball grew very slowly, almost no changes could be seen. 3 months later, the transparent water ball had already reached 3 feet in diameter. No matter how much Wang Daoyuan compressed it, it was useless. His dantian could no longer hold any more true essence. Next, he extracted the scarlet essence of qi and blood from his body, fusing it into the transparent water ball. At this time, he felt his body was empty, the strength of his body was quickly disappearing. More essence of qi and blood poured out from his organs, replenishing what was consumed. A month later, there wasn't much essence of qi and blood left in his body. What little was left was used to maintain his life. He felt his limbs were weak, as if his body was hollowed out. The water ball didn't grow bigger, only turning blood red. Then, he continued to circulate his martial arts, compressing the water ball. This time, the water ball could continue to compress, his body could also continue to absorb spirit qi and condense true essence. A month later, the transparent water ball had already solidified, like a blood-red crystal, shining with a bright light. The blood-red crystal ball was only 1 inch in diameter, this was the core of the golden core. Then, a spirit qi vortex with a diameter of about 100 feet appeared in the heavens tribulation valley, absorbing spirit qi from all directions and pouring it into Wang Daoyuan's body. This spirit qi was refined, turning into 5-colored spirit qi. Then, the 5-colored spirit qi condensed into a white jade-like solid, wrapping around the core. Another month passed, a white jade-like ball with a diameter of 9 inches appeared in his dantian. This was the embryonic form of the golden core. After the test of the thunder tribulation and the gift of heaven and earth, it could be called a true golden core. At this time, more than 2,000 feet in the air, an illusion that was exactly the same as his golden core appeared. In a moment, the illusion landed in front of Wang Daoyuan. He opened his mouth and swallowed the illusion of the golden core into his stomach, fusing with the embryonic form of the golden core. Then, his physical strength quickly recovered. After a few breaths, his physical strength was several times stronger than before. His spirit qi transformed into the golden core, and his strength soared. If he encountered the jade scale flood dragon now, there was no need to fight at all, he could kill it with a slap. At this time, he knew what it meant by, after swallowing a golden core, I knew that my fate was not in the hands of heaven. Chapter 504. Perfected Thunderflame, who was standing in the distance, revealed a gratified expression. The limit of a golden core was 9 inches and 9 centimeters, but that was only recorded in the ancient books. There was no mention of anyone reaching this limit. There were specific records of those who exceeded 9 inches. However, the number of cultivators in the Divine Weapon Pavilion could be counted on one hand. A 9-inch golden core had not appeared for at least 30,000 years. Now that the spirit qi was declining, high-grade spiritual objects were rare. No matter how talented a cultivator was, they could not fully utilize it. At the core formation stage, those who had a golden core of more than 5 inches were all extremely talented cultivators. At this moment, a dark cloud appeared in the sky above Heaven Tribulation Valley. With Wang Daoyuan as the center, a suppressive aura appeared in a 50-mile radius. The other cultivators retreated to the 50-mile radius. The tribulation cloud quickly grew to a diameter of 50 miles. The golden core tribulation cloud of a cultivator with a heaven spirit root was at most this size. However, the tribulation cloud showed no signs of stopping. It was still expanding rapidly. It finally grew to a diameter of 100 miles before stopping. Wang Daoyuan felt a chill in his heart. His heroic spirit of, "my life is not in the hands of the heavens," dissipated by more than half. Zhou Wan's tribulation cloud was only 30 miles in diameter, but it was already extremely powerful. This 100-mile tribulation cloud was going to take his life. Perfected Thunderflame's expression also turned serious. He was worried that the magic weapons he gave were not enough. But now that the tribulation had descended, no one could interfere. At this moment, a white crane flew out from the treasure cauldron mountain and landed beside Perfected Thunderflame. On the back of the crane was a middle-aged cultivator in a white robe. He asked, "Thunderflame, your disciple's talent is a little scary. Is it possible to pull him into the Divine Weapon Pavilion?" Venerable Lei Yen sighed and said, "Pavilion Master, it's not like you don't know the rules of our Divine Weapon Pavilion. He is an elder of the underworld sect. If we take him in, we will be breaking the rules. I don't want to care about this now. This tribulation is too powerful. I am worried that Daoyuan will not be able to pass this stage." This white-robed cultivator was the pavilion master of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, Perfected Cloud Crane. Perfected Cloud Crane sighed and said, "Unfortunately, we acted too late. If we could have taken him in before he opened his purple mansion, things would not have been so troublesome now. Your disciple's luck is extremely strong. He won't fail the Golden Core Tribulation. You don't have to worry." At the center of the tribulation cloud, a blue-white lightning bolt as thick as a child's arm struck down. Wang Daoyuan took out a low-grade Tier 4 shield and easily blocked this lightning tribulation. The next 2 blue and white lightning tribulations quickly descended, and the 4th-tier low-grade shield was undamaged. Not only did he not show any joy, his mood became even heavier. The power of these 3 tribulations was no different from Zhou Wan's tribulation. The tribulation clouds were several times larger, so the power of the lightning tribulation would definitely be greater. The first 3 lightning tribulations didn't change, which was, the rat pulling the shovel, the big head is at the back. Wang Daoyuan felt a subtle force of destruction and vitality enter his meridians through the shield and finally merge with the embryonic Jin Dan in his Dantian. After absorbing this special energy, there was no obvious change in the embryonic form of the golden core. This kind of power was called the power of the heavenly tribulation. It could refine the embryonic form of the golden core into a real golden core. Soon, the second wave of 3 lightning tribulations descended, destroying 3 low-grade Tier 4 magic tools. This wave of the power of the heavenly tribulation was much stronger. After the golden core absorbed it, many golden spots appeared. After a quarter of an hour, the third wave of the heavenly tribulation descended. The 4th-tier low-grade magic tools couldn't completely block the purple lightning tribulation. Wang Daoyuan directly took out a 4th-tier mid-grade shield to block the lightning tribulation. The 7th lightning tribulation heavily damaged a 4th-tier mid-grade shield, but Wang Daoyuan himself was unharmed. The 8th lightning tribulation descended, and he took out a 4th-tier mid-grade shield again. This shield was directly shattered. This lightning tribulation still had about 1/10 of its power left, and it hit him. However, this remaining power couldn't be considered very strong. Wang Daoyuan also felt that his body was a little numb, and his internal organs were faintly aching. However, he didn't suffer too much damage. The 9th lightning tribulation descended once again. Wang Daoyuan used the remaining 4th-tier low-grade magic tool, the 4th-tier mid-grade magic tool, and the previously damaged 4th-tier mid-grade magic tool to block it. A 3-meter purple lightning tribulation descended. This power was far stronger than Zhou Wan's 9th heavenly tribulation. The 3 magic tools resisted for a moment before they were all shattered. Nearly 30% of the power still hit him. This 30% power was also very strong. He continuously spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. The tribulation cloud in the sky didn't dissipate, nor did it turn into a golden cloud. It didn't even shrink in size. It just became a little thinner. At least 3/4 of its power hadn't been released. Wang Daoyuan hurriedly took a blood essence sky-restoring pill and activated the Azure Dragon Pearl to heal his internal injuries. After a quarter of an hour, his injuries were 70 to 80% healed. After the 9th Golden Core Lightning Tribulation, the golden core in his body turned from white jade to gold. The golden core now was the real golden core. At this moment, a silver lightning bolt as thick as a bucket fell from the tribulation cloud. In terms of power, it was far inferior to the 9th Golden Core Lightning Tribulation. However, this silver lightning carried a murderous aura. If it hit him, it would definitely cause a lot of damage. Wang Daoyuan no longer defended passively. He took out the white tiger blade and used the sword shadow divine light technique. 10 sword shadows appeared and slashed at the silver lightning along with the white tiger blade. This silver lightning seemed to be too weak. It was actually broken by Wang Daoyuan's attack. Then, the black, green, red, and yellow lightning bolts descended one after another. Wang Daoyuan also used magic tools and spells to break them. These 5 lightning bolts belonged to the 5 elements. It should be the 5 elements tribulation. However, it was surprisingly weak. However, the tribulation cloud in the sky didn't weaken significantly. It was obvious that the lightning tribulation wasn't that simple. After the 5 lightning bolts were broken, the tribulation cloud rolled and formed 5 vortexes. Wang Daoyuan summoned his 4 natal magic tools and the thick earth seal to deal with the changes in the lightning tribulation at any time. After a while, the phantom of a divine beast descended from each of the 5 vortexes. Wang Daoyuan was very familiar with these 5 divine beasts. His purple mansion phenomenon was exactly these 5. Outside the range of the tribulation cloud, perfected Lei Yen looked worried. Generally, cultivators with spiritual bodies would only face one tribulation of the 5 elements tribulation. The simplest one was a lightning bolt of the 5 elements. The phantom of a divine beast was already the most difficult 5 elements tribulation. Even for spirit body cultivators, it was extremely difficult for them to defeat divine beasts of the same level. The 5 divine beasts that appeared all had the strength of an inferior grade tier 4. Wang Daoyuan wanted to deal with 5 divine beasts of the same level alone. Moreover, these divine beast phantoms weren't just for show. Each divine beast had an extremely strong charm. The divine beast phantoms were only about 10 feet long. They were still absorbing the power of the lightning tribulation from the tribulation cloud to strengthen themselves. Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to delay any longer. The remaining power of the tribulation cloud was still very strong. If he let the divine beast phantoms continue to grow, he would soon be powerless to resist. Wang Daoyuan's strongest Dharma artifact was undoubtedly the white tiger blade. The white tiger blade was of the metal element. Metal restrained wood. Killing the Azure Dragon Phantom first would have the highest success rate. He activated the Azure Dragon Pearl, the Vermilion Bird Fan, and the Black Tortoise Shield to reveal their Dharma artifacts. The thick earth seal didn't have its Dharma artifact true form, so he personally went to battle. The 4 Dharma artifacts held back the divine beasts of the same element. He held the white tiger blade tightly with both hands. The Dharma artifact true form resonated with the purple mansion phenomenon. Then, the Dharma artifact true form merged with the white tiger blade again. The white tiger sword intent also released a murderous aura and merged with the white tiger blade. He used the cloud mist escape and rushed toward the Azure Dragon Phantom. This was the strongest killing move he could use in an instant. His figure instantly appeared in front of the Azure Dragon. The white tiger blade and 10 sword shadows pierced the Azure Dragon's mouth at the same time. The sword light flashed, and the Azure Dragon Phantom collapsed. The 2 claws of the Azure Dragon had also scratched his chest, leaving behind 10 bone-deep wounds. 10 miles ahead, a new azure dragon phantom appeared, but it was much dimmer. Where the azure dragon phantom collapsed, it left behind pure wood attribute spirit chi. Chapter 505. Wang Daoyuan absorbed all the spirit chi left behind by the azure dragon into his body. His life's spiritual fire quickly refined the wood-type spirit chi to replenish his spirit chi. In addition to the power of the heavenly tribulation, there was also a trace of the azure dragon's charm in the wood-type spirit chi. He drew the azure dragon's charm into his mind and merged it with the azure dragon avatar. He immediately felt that he had made great progress in his understanding of the azure dragon's charm. Then, he used his divine consciousness to control the azure dragon pearl's dharma artifact to heal the 10 wounds on Gao's chest. A dark green light shone on the wound, but the wound only stopped bleeding. It did not show any signs of healing. He used his divine consciousness to check the wounds and found that there was a destructive force on the wounds that prevented them from healing. If he did not get rid of this destructive force, he would not be able to recover. However, this destructive force was quite difficult to deal with. It would take a long time to get rid of it with his life force. Now that he was at the critical moment of transcending the tribulation, he did not have the time to care about this. It was enough to stop the bleeding and prevent the wounds from worsening. Wang Daoyuan used his divine consciousness to check the other 4 divine beast phantoms. He found that after the azure dragon was defeated, the speed of their growth slowed down. This time, Wang Daoyuan was interested. Quickly killing a divine beast could restore his spirit chi, refine his golden core, and enhance his understanding of the divine beast's charm. Apart from being injured and unable to recover, it was the perfect target to take advantage of. It would take at least a few years to comprehend the divine beast's charm with the help of a natal dharma artifact. Now that there was a shortcut, he could not let it go. It did not matter if he was injured. After transcending the 5-element tribulation, he would be rewarded by heaven and earth. As long as he was not completely dead, he would be able to recover. The azure dragon phantom had just reformed. It seemed that its strength was less than half of before. If he wanted to take advantage of it, he had to catch one and make it bald. He used the cloud escape again and fled toward the azure dragon. This time, it did not take him much effort. The 10 sword phantoms killed the azure dragon. Unfortunately, there was too little spirit chi left this time. It was too weak for him to comprehend the charm and refine his golden core. The azure dragon appeared again, but it was weaker than the last time. Continuing to kill it would not have much effect. It was better to keep it alive first and let it absorb more tribulation cloud's power. This time, Wang Daoyuan's target was the vermilion bird. Kirin and black tortoise had strong defense, while white tiger's attack power was too strong. Using the water dragon technique, a 5,000 to 6,000 feet long black dragon appeared. Wang Daoyuan transformed the black dragon into a water dragon armor to protect himself. He controlled the original form of the black tortoise shield and cast the spell that came with it. Black tortoise suppresses the sea. This spell was obtained from Flying Sand Wanderer and was created by Venerable Fu Mo in his later years. The black tortoise had a strong suppressive force to begin with, while Kirin didn't have much of a suppressive force. The Kirin seal's suppressive power mainly relied on the earth element's thickness. The power of the heavenly tribulation vermilion bird was clearly affected by this suppressive force. Wang Daoyuan immediately unleashed the water dragon prison to trap the vermilion bird. The power of the heavenly tribulation vermilion bird was comparable to that of an early-stage golden core cultivator, and it possessed the aura of a mythological beast. His half-baked water dragon prison couldn't suppress it at all. The vermilion bird instantly tore the water dragon prison apart, and Wang Daoyuan's white tiger blade and 10 sword shadows also arrived in front of it. The vermilion bird had no time to dodge, and could only spit out a mouthful of flames at Wang Daoyuan. Although his water dragon technique was half-baked, his spiritual energy was strong enough to withstand the flames unscathed. After absorbing the spiritual energy left by the vermilion bird, he chose white tiger as his next target. After the azure dragon and vermilion bird reappeared, they were still not strong enough, so it was fine to ignore them for a short time. Borrowing the power of the 3 life-bound magic artifacts, he killed White Tiger once. This guy's attack power was too strong. If he let it grow, it wouldn't be long before it could kill him. With the black tortoise and vermilion bird's shadows entangled White Tiger, Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to get close. Otherwise, if he were to be attacked by White Tiger head-on, his life would be in danger. He wielded the sky-cleaving sword and controlled the giant White Tiger blade to attack the White Tiger Heavenly Tribulation. White Tiger was fierce. It endured the attacks of the black tortoise and vermilion bird's shadows and desperately pounced on Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan used the smoke escape to dodge, but his left shoulder blade was still hit by a claw. If his bones weren't hard enough, his heart would have been dug out. White Tiger was also killed by the pursuing White Tiger blade and turned into metal elemental spiritual energy. Wang Daoyuan continued to kill the 5 divine beasts, and his injuries became more and more serious. After 5 minutes, Wang Daoyuan's body had more than 50 wounds that couldn't be healed. Affected by his injuries, he could only use 50 to 60% of his strength. However, the strength of the 5 divine beasts was suppressed to the peak of the Violet Palace realm. He continued to kill the divine beasts to obtain their divine essence. Now, he had learned the basics of the divine beast's divine essence. Without the heavenly tribulation, he would have to spend at least 10 years to reach this step. His golden core was constantly being tempered by the power of the heavenly tribulation, and now there was a purple-gold color. The heavenly tribulation clouds were thinned by more than 30% because of him. The divine beasts no longer had the power to resist. They were completely tools for him to refine his golden core and comprehend the divine essence. If he continued to waste time like this, he would definitely succeed. At this moment, the heavenly tribulation clouds rolled violently as if they were angry. Then, 5 pillars of light appeared and enveloped the 5 divine beasts. The divine beast's strength increased rapidly, and they instantly recovered to the level of the low-grade 4th stage. Wang Daoyuan's heart sank. He was in danger. Even if he exposed the 5 elements spiritual fire, it would be difficult for him to survive. However, he still had to take the risk. With his master's protection, exposing the spiritual fire might not necessarily kill him. Just as he was about to use the 5 elements spiritual fire, the 5 divine beasts approached each other and finally merged into one. The 5 divine beasts merged into one and turned into a strange divine beast. This fellow's body was no different from a true dragon's. It was covered in bright yellow scales, had 4 claws and 5 toes, and a pair of forked dragon horns on its head. The strange thing was that this divine beast had a pair of 5-colored wings. Wang Daoyuan quickly realized what this was. It was the legendary true dragon of the dragon clan, Yinglong. Legend had it that the phoenix was also a descendant of Yinglong and had inherited his 5-colored wings. One of Yinglong's sons, Kenma, was also the ancestor of all beasts. He was also a dragon and belonged to the Scaly clan, so he was related to all the divine beasts of the 5 elements. Yinglong raised its head and roared. Wang Daoyuan felt his soul tremble. Then, Yinglong stared at him with its pair of dragon eyes. Outside the heavenly tribulation, Perfected Lei Yen looked solemn and asked Perfected Yunhe beside him, Sect Master, have you heard of this heavenly tribulation? Perfected Yunhe shook his head and said nothing. Wang Daoyuan did not dare to be careless and immediately formed the 5 elements demon suppression seal. Yinglong pounced on him. Dodging the heavenly tribulation was only delaying it. It would be more passive if it was caught. The 5 elements demon suppression seal was formed and smashed towards Yinglong. Moments later, Yinglong collided with the 5 elements demon suppression seal. Yinglong's strength was comparable to a mid-Aurus core cultivator and was very close to a late Aurus core cultivator. If Wang Daoyuan was not injured, the 5 elements demon suppression seal would be able to withstand this attack. However, he was severely injured and could only use half of his strength. The 5 elements demon suppression seal collapsed instantly, and all 4 of his natal dharma artifacts were badly damaged. Wang Daoyuan took out the earthen seal and smashed it towards Yinglong. Soon, the earthen seal was also shattered by Yinglong. Wang Daoyuan had nowhere to run. He could only try his best to activate the 5 elements spiritual fire and his golden core to protect his body. He activated the Purple Mansion phenomenon to protect his Purple Mansion and save his life. As the winged dragon descended, Wang Daoyuan's bones emitted a series of cracking sounds. Then, he lost consciousness and collapsed to the ground. Outside the range of the heavenly tribulation, Wang Daoyuan shouted, "Second brother." Then, he was about to rush over. He had been guarding the Divine Weapon Pavilion's property. When he heard that Wang Daoyuan had formed his core, he rushed back. Perfected Lei Yan grabbed him and pointed at the heavenly tribulation clouds in the sky. The heavenly tribulation clouds haven't dispersed. Daoyuan is still alive. At that moment, Yinglong's heavenly tribulation dissipated, and bright yellow spiritual energy spread throughout Wang Daoyuan's body. The thick black heavenly tribulation clouds in the sky began to turn from black to gold. Chapter 506. Wang Daoyuan had successfully transcended the tribulation, signifying the arrival of the gift of heaven and earth. Thunderflame Taoist Master laughed heartily while Wang Daoyuan, who still had an anxious look on his face, laughed as well. Moments later, the tribulation cloud turned completely golden. Then, the gift of heaven and earth descended. This time, it wasn't golden raindrops that fell, but golden petals. The petals drifted towards Wang Daoyuan after falling from the golden cloud. They landed on his body and disappeared. Wang Daoyuan's vitality was rapidly recovering and his broken bones were regenerating. Wang Daoyuan asked Thunderflame Taoist Master, "Master, why is my second brother's gift of heaven and earth different from the ones I've seen before?" Thunderflame Taoist Master stroked his beard and smiled, "This is called a deluge of heavenly flowers. The person transcending the tribulation is extremely lucky. According to the records of the sect, this has only happened 3 times in the tens of thousands of years of Beiyuan's history. All 3 of them were famous experts of their time. Many geniuses of the same era paled in comparison to them." Cloud Crane Taoist Master was also surprised. He didn't expect such a rare sight to appear in front of him. After half a cup of tea's time, Wang Daoyuan's injuries were completely healed and he regained consciousness. He used his consciousness to check his body and was relieved to find that his body had recovered. The golden petals turned into golden energy after entering his body. There was no need for him to refine them as they fused into his body and flowed through his meridians and blood. The golden energy contained some pure spiritual energy, but it wasn't completely spiritual energy. It didn't have much effect on his cultivation, but it had a great impact on his body and foundation. Under the nourishment of the golden energy, his physical body was rapidly strengthening. Moreover, it was strengthening from the inside out. However, there was a limit to the body and it couldn't absorb the golden energy without limit. After half a quarter of an hour, his body had reached its limit and couldn't be strengthened any further. He drew the golden energy into his sea of consciousness. His Purple Mansion phenomenon and soul were desperately absorbing it. After the golden energy was absorbed by his soul, it fused into the soul origin between his eyebrows. The soul origin was extremely mysterious and no one knew its structure. It was only known that it was related to a person's perception and talent. As long as one's origin wasn't damaged, no matter how severe the damage to one's soul was, there was still a chance for it to recover. Once one's origin was damaged, even if one had a heavenly treasure, it would be useless. After absorbing the golden energy, the Violet Palace manifestation didn't change at all. Another 15 minutes passed, and his divine soul and Violet Palace avatar stopped absorbing the golden energy. It had been more than 15 minutes since the tribulation cloud turned into a golden cloud. Normally, the gifts of heaven and earth would not last more than 15 minutes. However, the golden cloud in the sky was still very large, with a diameter of over 50 miles. It was still far from dissipating. Wang Daoyuan sent the golden energy into the spirit pearl space to see if it was effective. Unexpectedly, as soon as the spiritual bead came into contact with the golden energy, it began to devour it. After he formed his gold core, there were no obvious changes in the space of his spiritual pearl. Now that the golden energy had entered, the 5 spirit veins in the spiritual pearl space began to grow rapidly. It didn't take long for the 5 spirit veins to grow to lower tier 4. The many spiritual plants in the space were also desperately absorbing the golden energy, especially the peach tree saplings and the blood fire hibiscus. After the scarlet-feathered crow lost its intrinsic feather, it had been in a bad state. Now that it encountered the golden energy, it instantly became active and absorbed it with all its might. Soon, a reddish-gold feather appeared where the natal feather had been at the end of the tail. 15 minutes later, the speed at which the spiritual pearl space absorbed the golden energy slowed down significantly. The golden cloud in the sky was still about 40 miles in diameter. After a large number of golden petals landed on Wang Daoyuan, they couldn't be absorbed, and the golden energy dissipated. Wang Daoyuan stood up and bowed to his master. "Master, there are too many gifts of heaven and earth. I can't absorb all of them. You should absorb some as well. Senior brothers and martial nephews, come as well." Lei Yan didn't decline. He rode on the auspicious cloud and brought Wang Daoyin into the heavenly tribulation valley. A portion of the golden petals landed on the 2 of them. Wang Daoyin had just broken through to the mid-stage Violet Palace realm, and his body had a lot of room for growth. Now that he was nourished by the golden energy, his qi and blood were clearly strengthened. On the other hand, Lei Yan was already about 940 years old, and his cultivation had long reached the peak of the golden core realm. If he didn't break through to the half-step Yuanian realm, his body wouldn't be able to make any significant progress. However, Wang Daoyuan could still feel that his blood was rapidly increasing. Soon, several Violet Palace realm cultivators of Lei Yan's lineage also arrived at the heavenly tribulation valley. Zhao Liang and 8th sister's son, Wang Mingting, had already reached the peak of the Foundation Establishment realm. He also arrived at the heavenly tribulation valley. Yunhe asked Wang Daoyuan, "Martial nephew Daoyuan, I have a disciple who was heavily injured many years ago when he was patrolling the southern wasteland. His auris core was shattered, and it will be difficult for him to make any further progress in his cultivation. The gifts of heaven and earth after the golden core lightning tribulation have an extremely strong healing effect on all injuries. Martial nephew's extravagant gifts of heaven and earth have an even better healing effect. I want that disciple to absorb some of the gifts of heaven and earth. If there's anything you want, just say the word." The pavilion master of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, a half-step Yuanian realm cultivator, and one of the top experts in the world, personally made a request. Wang Daoyuan naturally could not refuse. Moreover, he was forming his auris core in someone else's territory. He cupped his fists and said, "Martial uncle, you're too serious. I borrowed the spirit vein of the Divine Weapon Pavilion to form my auris core, and I already owe the Divine Weapon Pavilion a favor. Since that senior brother needs the gifts of heaven and earth, feel free to come." Yunhe smiled and said, "Thank you, martial nephew." After a while, an early golden core cultivator with an unstable aura arrived at the heavenly tribulation valley on an auspicious cloud. He greeted Wang Daoyuan and expressed his gratitude. Then, he walked into the heavenly tribulation valley and absorbed the golden energy. This gifts of heaven and earth lasted for more than an hour before it completely ended. Everyone present more or less gained some benefits. Even the spirit vein of the heavenly tribulation valley absorbed some of the golden energy, and the concentration of spirit qi increased slightly. The golden cloud dispersed, and everyone cupped their fists and thanked Wang Daoyuan before returning to the treasured cauldron mountain. Wang Daoyuan also rode on an auspicious cloud and tried to fly. After returning to the treasured cauldron mountain, Lei Yan returned to his cave abode and meditated to cultivate. After a quarter of an hour, Wang Daoyuan suddenly felt that the spirit qi on his master's body had increased significantly. Then, a spirit qi vortex with a diameter of 100 feet appeared above the cave abode. At the bottom of the treasured cauldron valley, the concentration of spirit qi had reached the peak of level 5. It was extremely difficult to cause such a large spirit qi vortex. Yunhe quickly arrived outside the cave abode. Wang Daoyuan cupped his fists and said, "Greetings, martial uncle. May I ask what's wrong with my master?" Yunhe smiled and said, "Senior brother Lei Yan is about to break through to the half-step Yuaniing. More than 400 years ago, he suffered a serious internal injury and his foundation was damaged. Otherwise, with his talent, he wouldn't have been stuck at the peak of golden core for hundreds of years. After receiving your gifts of heaven and earth this time, his old injuries have probably healed. Coupled with hundreds of years of accumulation, breaking through to the half-step Yuanying is just around the corner. Half a month later, a powerful aura spread out from the cave abode. A purplish gold golden core appeared out of thin air and fell into the cave abode. A purplish gold golden core was enough to form a nascent soul. If one could break through to the half-step Yuanying, the next step would be to shatter the golden core and fuse the spirit and purple palace together with the shattered golden core. When the half-step Yuanying was formed, the heavenly tribulation of Yuanying would descend. However, the current Beiyuan Xiuxian was not enough to support a cultivator to break through to the half-step Yuanying. Cultivating a purplish gold golden core was the limit. An hour later, Lei Yan walked out of the cave abode. Yinhe cupped his fists and said, "Congratulations, senior brother. You've finally broken through to the half-step Yuanying." Wang Daoyuan and the others also bowed and said, "Congratulations, master." Lei Yan sighed and said, "It's just breaking through to the half-step Yuanying. There's nothing to congratulate. The half-step Yuanying only increases one's combat strength. His lifespan won't increase. No matter how strong he is in battle, he won't be able to escape death after 50 years. Chapter 507. After exchanging some pleasantries, the disciples of the Divine Weapon Pavilion who had come to watch and gain experience all left. Lei Yan's disciples and grand disciples also returned to their respective residences. Wang Daoyuan and the two half-step Yuanying cultivators entered their residences. Immortal Yunhe and Lei Yan exchanged a few words, then said to Wang Daoyuan, "Martial nephew Daoyuan, there are some things that I have to say. You've already formed your golden core and your talent is rare. There's a saying that shallow water can't raise a dragon. The underworld sect is weak and its inheritance is mediocre. I have some understanding of the underworld sect. Those people don't have any abilities, but they are jealous of others. If you continue to stay in the underworld sect, it may affect your future path. If you join the Divine Weapon Pavilion, Senior Lei Yan can accept you as a true disciple. A half-step Yuanying true disciple and a golden core cultivator can immediately become an elder. When you become a half-step Yuanying, it's not impossible for you to sit in my position." Wang Daoyuan sighed and said, "I also know that the underworld sect is not tolerant. If I continue to stay in the underworld sect, I'll be ostracized. But the clan has been there for hundreds of years and has hundreds of thousands of people. We can't give up so easily. If I join the Divine Weapon Pavilion, I'll be betraying the underworld sect. Those people from the underworld sect can't do anything to me, but the hundreds of thousands of people can't withstand the underworld sect's revenge." Immortal Yunhe nodded, then took out a token and said, "It's not that there's no way to get the best of both worlds. This is the Divine Weapon Pavilion's guest elder token. You can be a guest elder of the Divine Weapon Pavilion and enjoy the treatment of an elder. You don't have to join the Divine Weapon Pavilion directly. This way, you won't have to leave the underworld sect even if you're a member of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. I don't believe that those golden core cultivators of the underworld sect would dare to touch a guest elder of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. This identity was very advantageous. If the clan wanted to develop in the future, they needed more people to form their golden core. Going through the golden core heavenly tribulation was like burning a fourth-grade magic weapon. There were only a few forces that could refine fourth-grade magic weapons in large quantities. Even if they had the inheritance of a fourth-grade weapon refiner, it would be difficult to obtain sufficient fourth-grade materials. The Divine Weapon Pavilion had quite a number of Tier 4 spirit ores, so the materials were not a problem at all. In addition, the status of the guest elder was also a great deterrent to the Netherworld sect. In front of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, the Netherworld sect was just a small force. Master does not have much lifespan left. After Master passes away, before little brother forms his Azoth core, he will be in a state where he does not have any backing in the Divine Weapon Pavilion. The reason why the Netherworld sect dared to suppress the Wang family previously was because they had anticipated this period. They didn't think that Wang Daoyuan and his brother would be able to form their gold core before Lei Yan passed away. Without the protection of Daoist Lei Yan, Wang Daoyuan's chances of forming his core were slim. Now that he had the position of guest elder, he could be considered half a member of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Luo Jiuyo and his gang did not dare to deal with him openly. As a guest elder of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, he naturally could not reject such benefits. Wang Daoyuan received the token, cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, martial uncle. This disciple is willing to be the guest elder of the Divine Weapon Pavilion." Daoist Yunhe stroked his beard and smiled. Good. During this period of time, the Divine Weapon Pavilion has been filled with happy events. Senior Lei Yan has broken through to the half-step Yuanying, my disciple Yu Buqing has recovered his gold core, and now martial nephew Daoyuan has become the guest elder of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. You master and disciple can chat first. I will go and arrange these things. After Daoist Yunhe left, Daoist Lei Yan smiled. In the past, I always wanted to break through to the half-step Yuanying, but I was injured in the early years and damaged my foundation, so I could not break through. Now that I don't have much lifespan left, it is meaningless to break through. Wang Daoyuan comforted him. Master, you don't have to be like this. Beiyuan Xiuxian used to have many soul formation cultivators. Who knows, there might still be treasures in the abodes of some senior experts that can form Yuanying. I will stay at the treasured Cauldron Mountain for a while to repair my natal Dharma artifact. After that, I will head to the demon-resisting mountain. At that time, I will search the southern wasteland and maybe find a 5th-grade spirit item. Daoist Lei Yan shook his head. If it is so easy to find a 5th-grade spirit item, Beiyuan Xiuxian would not have no Yuanying cultivators for 10,000 years. That's right, I am now a half-step Yuanying cultivator. My old injuries have healed and my strength has increased greatly. I will bring you to the demon-resisting mountain and bring back the earth essence. Wang Daoyuan quickly refused. Master, don't go to the demon-resisting mountain. There are many gold core devil cultivators there, and there might even be devils there. You will be too conspicuous there and might be attacked by them. Although a half-step Yuanying cultivator is strong, it will be difficult for him to withstand the attacks of many gold core devil cultivators. I have refined the spiritual fire, so my spiritual power is very mixed. Plus, I am a body refinement cultivator. Normal people will not be able to recognize me if I pretend to be a devil cultivator. After I repair my natal Dharma artifact and refine it, my strength will be stronger than most gold core middle stage cultivators. I will be able to retreat against gold core late stage devil cultivators. As long as I don't expose my identity, I won't be in any danger. Lei Yan Taoist master weighed the pros and cons, then nodded. You are right, but I am worried. My foundation was damaged in the southern wasteland, which is why I was unable to break through to the half-step Yuanying realm for hundreds of years. You have great fortune and might be able to form the Yuanying realm in the future. Don't follow my path and delay your path. Wang Daoyuan agreed. Master, don't worry. I have been traveling outside since I was 20 years old. Protecting myself is not a problem. Lei Yan Taoist master did not insist. I will do as you say. If you are in danger, use the purple lightning evil punishing token. Although it is not very powerful and can't help you much, it can let me sense your location. I will hurry over to save you. After that, Wang Daoyuan stayed in his master's cave to repair his 4 natal Dharma artifacts. Yinglong's final attack had caused great damage to his natal Dharma artifacts. Even though his cultivation had reached the early stage of the Golden Core realm, it took him nearly a year to repair all 4 Dharma artifacts. During this year, the Divine Weapon Pavilion also held a small celebration to celebrate 3 happy events. However, they did not hold a big celebration and only invited a few small forces nearby. The news of Wang Daoyuan forming his gold core and becoming the guest elder of the Divine Weapon Pavilion also spread. Through the communication channels of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, he understood the situation of his family. After the underworld sect learned of his matter, they did not do anything and everything was peaceful. Wang Daoyuan was also relieved. He calmed himself down and stayed at the precious Cauldron Mountain, asking his master for more information about the Golden Core realm. After the 4 natal Dharma artifacts were repaired, Wang Daoyuan used the 4th grade Heavenly Demon Metal and Tai Gold to refine the White Tiger Blade so that it could become a 4th grade Dharma artifact as soon as possible. The 4 natal Dharma artifacts, the Black Tortoise Shield and the Vermilion Bird Fan, were all 3rd grade superior grade Dharma artifacts. It was not easy to find the materials and could only be slowly nourished with spiritual fire. The Tsang Dragon Pearl was strong enough. Its original material was very close to the 4th grade, and now it was only a step away from becoming a 4th grade Dharma artifact. However, Wang Daoyuan did not have the ability to find a 4th grade Pseudo-Dragon Pearl. The upgrade of the Tsang Dragon Pearl could only be done slowly. The only thing that could rapidly upgrade its grade was the White Tiger Blade. He used the Tai Golden Flame to refine the essence of the Heavenly Demon Metal and Tai Gold and merged it into the White Tiger Blade. After that, he improved the White Tiger Blade's pattern. After more than a month, the White Tiger Blade's grade was upgraded to 4th grade inferior grade. With the 4th grade inferior grade White Tiger Blade, it was possible to kill a mid-stage Golden Core Realm cultivator instantly. During this tribulation, the 5 elements divine beasts of the heavenly tribulation finally merged into Yinglong. This provided him with a direction to improve the 5 elements demon subduing seal in the future. After the 5 Dharma artifacts were combined, they could also be combined into a Dharma artifact similar to the Yinglong seal. However, in order to improve such a Dharma artifact and unleash an extremely strong power, he had to comprehend Yinglong's charm. It was extremely difficult to comprehend Yinglong's charm. He had never heard of any Dharma art that was related to Yinglong. As such, he could not find the Yinglong visualization diagram. Without the visualization diagram, how could it be easy to comprehend Yinglong's charm? Chapter 508. Wang Daoyuan didn't set off immediately after refining the White Tiger Blade to low-grade grade 4. Instead, he continued to refine other magic tools. The Azure Dragon Pearl wasn't far from a grade 4 magic tool. After refining it with the spiritual fire of life for a while and improving its pattern, it should be about there. Moreover, the Azure Dragon Pearl and the Vermilion Bird Fan hadn't been refined for long, so they weren't connected yet. Previously, he had taken advantage of the heavenly tribulation and comprehended the charm of the 5 elements divine beasts. Refining his natal magic tools to the point where they were connected would save him a lot of effort. After staying in the Treasure Cauldron Mountain for 3 years, the Azure Dragon Pearl and the Vermilion Bird Fan were connected. During these 3 years, the Azure Dragon Pearl had continuously absorbed the life force in the spiritual fire of life and become a low-grade grade 4 magic tool. After making all the necessary preparations, Wang Daoyuan bid farewell to his master. Knowing that Wang Daoyuan was leaving, Lei Yan took out a storage bag and gave it to him. This is something I used to deceive people when I was traveling in the southern wasteland in my early years. Wang Daoyuan opened the storage bag to take a look. There was a black cloak and a blood-red heavy sword inside. The cloak's shape wasn't strange, but Wang Daoyuan didn't recognize the material of the cloak. When he probed it with his spiritual sense, it was like a stone sinking into the sea. The blood-red heavy sword was more than 6 feet long and 1 foot wide, like half a door. This was a magic tool commonly used by body refinement cultivators, so there was nothing strange about it. He asked Lei Yan, "Master, how come I've never seen the material of this cloak before?" Lei Yan answered, "I got it when I was roaming the southern wasteland in my early years and killed a late-stage golden core demon. I've never seen the material before, but it's most likely related to demons. Even this heavy sword was obtained from him. When I killed him, I wasn't in the mood to ask him what it was, so I just called it the black magic robe. Even a half-step Yuaniing spiritual sense can't see through it. I've worn this black magic robe many times in the southern wasteland and it's quite effective. You'll be safe with it." After all, the soul-binding silk was only a second-tier material. It could not completely block the divine sense of a golden core cultivator. It was even more useless against a late-stage golden core cultivator. The devil race and devil cultivators of the Yin demon tribe may have stronger divine senses than righteous Tao cultivators of the same level. Relying on the soul-restricting silkworm's silk alone, it was impossible to avoid the probing of their divine senses. With this black devil's robe, it would be much easier to ambush and escape. He then asked Lei Yen Jinren about the demon-resisting mountain before leaving the treasured Cauldron Mountain and heading southeast. He didn't arrogantly step on the auspicious clouds. Instead, he rode on the bone sword that he had obtained when he was roaming the southern wasteland. Flying 4,000 to 5,000 li in 2 hours was not as fast as flying 7,000 to 8,000 li in 2 hours, but the advantage was that it was not conspicuous. With the black demon robe draped over his body, even a golden core cultivator would not be able to easily see through his cultivation. It took them half a month to reach the south of the Demon Burial Mountain. The Southern Desolation's territory was vast. From the border of the Southern Desolation to absolute heaven abyss, it was over 300,000 miles. After passing the Demon Burial Mountain, they entered the depths of the Southern Wasteland, where the spiritual chi suddenly became violent. Even devil cultivators without a Violet Palace realm cultivation would be killed by the violent spiritual chi. Most Violet Palace devil cultivators didn't dare to stay outside for too long. However, the adaptability of the human race had always been very strong. Some golden core devil cultivators would set up a formation that could warm the spiritual chi in places with spirit veins and establish a clan. Therefore, the depths of the southern wasteland wasn't a desolate place. There were many low-level devil cultivators and even ordinary people. However, they couldn't leave the protection of the formation unless they reached the Violet Palace realm. Fortunately, devil cultivators were different from righteous Tao cultivators. They cultivated by plundering the cultivation results of other living beings for their own use. It was much easier for them to reach the Violet Palace realm compared to righteous Tao cultivators. However, there were gains and losses. When they reached the core formation stage, their lightning tribulation would be much more terrifying than righteous Tao cultivators. There were many rank 4 spirit veins in the southern wasteland, and there were many golden core devil cultivators establishing their own clans. Wang Daoyuan also saw a few markets established by devil cultivator clans. His goal was the earth essence, so there was no need to complicate matters. Therefore, he didn't enter the market. However, in this place, flying on a sword for a long period of time was a bit too conspicuous. If golden core cultivators didn't fly on a sword, Violet Palace realm cultivators wouldn't be able to fly for long. In order to avoid attracting attention, Wang Daoyuan also rode on a black cloud and flew towards the south. The auspicious clouds of golden core cultivators were purely decorative. There was no problem for them to fly without riding on a cloud. Of course, riding on an auspicious cloud would make them look more stylish. Since it was a decorative item, the appearance and color of the auspicious cloud would be strange. It wouldn't be a problem for the auspicious cloud to transform into a horse. In order to appear more compatible, Wang Daoyuan condensed a black cloud filled with Yin Qi using water attribute spiritual Qi. After using half a month's time, he arrived at the southernmost part of the southern wasteland. This place was already within the range of the demon-resisting mountain. The heaven-ending abyss was just 1,000 miles ahead. Looking at the heaven-ending abyss from afar, he could only see a patch of black chi. This black chi was extremely violent. It was like a huge black wave that continuously surged in the air. It rushed up to the clouds and even blocked the 9 heavens astral wind. With Wang Daoyuan's current cultivation, he would be able to stay in the 9 heavens astral wind for a short while. However, his body would also be severely damaged. This black chi could block the 9 heavens astral wind. Its power might be even stronger than the astral wind. Even peak golden core cultivators wouldn't be able to stay in there for too long. Back then, when Master entered the heaven-ending abyss with peak golden core cultivation, he was also unable to withstand it after only going 100 miles in. Wang Daoyuan was currently only early golden core cultivator. He absolutely didn't dare to take this risk. It was just that this black chi seemed to be blocked by an invisible wall and was unable to spread towards the north. This invisible wall should be the great formation set up by an almighty senior to protect Beiyuan Shoshin. The shore of the heaven-ending abyss was the end of Beiyuan Shoshin. The earth was severed by that sword back then. This black chi surged out from the cracks in the earth. Above the 9 heavens astral wind, below the severing mountains and valleys, it was indeed worthy of the name heaven-ending abyss. Wang Daoyuan was still self-aware. He knew what he was capable of and wouldn't rashly explore the heaven-ending abyss. However, the spiritual pearl in his zifu was trembling slightly. It was as if something in the heaven-ending abyss was attracting him. Wang Daoyuan's previous life was a spiritual light nurtured by the spiritual pearl. He could be considered as the spiritual pearl's artifact spirit. Naturally, he could sense the spiritual pearl's reaction. He felt that there were 2 things in the heaven-ending abyss that he desired greatly. Of these 2 things, one was at the southern end of the heaven/mountain range, which was more than 20,000 miles to the south. He could roughly guess what this place was. According to the scene he saw when he opened his zifu, that should be the place where the spiritual pearl was nurtured. That place could produce an extremely strong attractive force for him and the spiritual pearl. There should be something useful for the spiritual pearl. Who knows, it might be able to repair the cracks on the spiritual pearl. That place was at the edge of the heaven-ending abyss. After obtaining the earth essence, he could go and explore it. The other thing was that it was very close. It was about 4,000 to 5,000 miles to the south of him. It was just that the place was rather deep. It should be in the depths of the heaven-ending abyss. It was at least several 100,000 feet away from the surface. Furthermore, the feeling this place gave him was completely different from the place where the spiritual pearl was nurtured. That place gave him a feeling of home. While the thing in the depths of the heaven-ending abyss made him desire it, there was also a deep sense of fear. He could not guess what exactly was attracting him down there. Of course, even if he knew, it would be useless. Even Yuanian cultivators could not penetrate several 100,000 feet deep into the heaven-ending abyss. At this moment, on the southern shore of the heaven-ending abyss, under a giant plum tree, 2 old men were playing chess. Both of them had white hair and beards. Their bodies did not carry a trace of spiritual energy fluctuation. They both wore coarse cloth robes. It was just that one of them wore a black robe, while the other wore a white robe. The black-robed old man was just about to place down his chess piece when he suddenly stopped. He asked, "Old friend, do you feel that there are movements below the heaven-ending abyss?" The white-robed old man said unconcernedly, "How can I not feel it? This kind of movement is common. It's probably the devil remnants below causing trouble again. If it wasn't for the black gas in the heaven-ending abyss being a hindrance, I would have killed them all with a slap." Chapter 509. Wang Daoyuan, who was deep north of decimating heaven abyss, naturally didn't know about the conversation between the 2 old men. What he wanted was to get the earth essence as soon as possible and refine the Kirin seal. With the Kirin seal in hand, he could go to the birthplace of the spirit pearl to take a look. As for that thing in the depths of decimating heaven abyss, he didn't have the slightest idea about it. Just the black chi in decimating heaven abyss alone, he couldn't guarantee how long he could survive in it. Not to mention going thousands of miles deep and going down to look for something. It was said that there were many demon remnants hidden in decimating heaven abyss. Back then, even the Almighty couldn't get rid of all of them. If he, a golden core cultivator, rashly went down, wouldn't that be courting death? Wang Daoyuan ordered his clone Shui Ming to check the map given by Flying Sans Sanren in the Spirit Pearl's space. According to the records on the map, he searched for the path that Flying Sans Sanren's master had taken back then. Because the spiritual energy in the entire demon-resisting mountain was too violent, spiritual plants that could grow here were extremely rare. Everywhere was bare, so finding the path wasn't difficult. The entrance of the path was a valley called Crescent Valley, named because it was shaped like a crescent moon. Thousands of feet in the air, finding an unobstructed valley wasn't difficult. Wang Daoyuan flew to a place over 100 miles west of Crescent Valley and descended from the sky. After all, he was unfamiliar with this place, so it was better to be careful. Using his spiritual sense to probe the rock layer beneath his feet, he could probe more than 3,000 feet into the rock layer. There weren't any problems with the rocks here, so he used the earth escape technique and went more than 2,000 feet underground. With the black magic robe on him, he wasn't afraid that someone could track him. After several dozen miles, a skinny humanoid creature appeared at the place where he used the earth escape technique. This guy's height was about the same as a child, and his appearance was similar to a human's. However, his nose was like an eagle's hook, and there was a 2-inch long horn between his eyebrows. This horn was pitch black like a rhinoceros horn. He sniffed at the place where Wang Daoyuan disappeared, and muttered to himself, "What a strange guy, there's the smell of black-winged demons, blood demons, and a human cultivator on his body." Spiritual energy actually has 5 different characteristics, and his spiritual sense has the characteristics of my soul-devouring demon lineage. After saying that, he also used an escape technique and burrowed underground. A moment later, he came out from the ground again and said in surprise, "What a strong physical body, to be able to travel more than 300 meters underground in this place." Then, a ball of black energy appeared in his hand, and he placed it where Wang Daoyuan had disappeared. 10 breaths later, Zhang Xian took out the black ball of energy and placed it on the black horn on his glabella. Black horn absorbed the energy and emitted a black light, floating towards the east. At this time, Wang Daoyuan had already advanced more than 50 kilometers due east, reaching a depth of 500 meters below the Crescent Valley. The rocks here contained a large amount of non-elemental spiritual energy and were extremely strong. If he released the 5 elements spiritual fire to burn them, he would definitely be able to obtain a lot of spiritual energy. Of course, this was just a thought. Doing this would cause too much of a commotion. It would be troublesome if the demonic cultivators and demons were disturbed. The rock was strong and contained a lot of spiritual energy, so the pressure on the person using earth escape was also greater. Even with the strength of his physical body, he still felt great pressure at a depth of more than 500 feet. With the map left behind by that senior, he used his divine sense to explore and quickly found an underground cave. This cave was originally a karst cave, but there were many demonic beasts digging and traces of human carving. He didn't know that someone was following him, and he didn't know anything about the methods of the person following him. However, he didn't completely trust Flying Sand Loose Cultivator and wouldn't just follow the mark on the map and go straight down. Besides, who knew what changes had happened down there after a few thousand years? He still couldn't let down his guard. Taking out his clone Shui Ming from the space of the spiritual pearl, he gave him the spirit-isolating jade pendant and more than 10 earth escape talismans. He let Shui Ming scout ahead while he followed behind. The route left behind by that senior was extremely complicated, and there were many places where he needed to use the earth escape technique. After more than 2 hours, Wang Daoyuan had already arrived at a depth of 7,000 to 8,000 meters. At this time, Shui Ming, who was scouting ahead, was blocked by a formation. Wang Daoyuan was delighted. According to the records on the map, that senior had set up a formation here in order to prevent the earth essence from falling into the hands of others. Now that the formation was still there, it was possible that this place hadn't been discovered by demonic cultivators and demons. The method to enter the formation was also recorded on the map. To be safe, he decided not to go in. Wang Daoyuan controlled his clone Shui Ming to scout the formation according to the method. There was no problem with this method, and Shui Ming quickly entered the formation. The location of the earth essence marked on the map was at the center of an earth spiritual vein. Shui Ming quickly arrived at an underground stone room. This stone room wasn't naturally formed, but was artificially carved. On the ground at the center of the stone room, there was an earthen yellow mineral vein. The mineral was like a translucent amber, and contained a rich earth attribute spiritual energy. Unlike ordinary ores, the earth attribute spiritual energy inside was flowing, and it was constantly emitting dense spiritual energy. This was the so-called spiritual vein, a spiritual vein crystal that only appeared on spiritual veins of the 4th level and above. On top of this spiritual vein crystal, there was a transparent earthen yellow crystal with a height of 5 inches and the thickness of an infant's arm. The earth attribute's spiritual energy within it was even denser, and it was constantly absorbing earth attribute's spiritual energy from the spiritual vein. This was the earth essence that Wang Daoyuan had been searching for nearly 100 years. The earth essence's strength wasn't high, and it wasn't suitable for refining equipment. However, regardless of whether it was added to other materials, or directly refined to refine the body, it would have a strong effect. Apart from that, if the earth essence was added to an earth spiritual vein, it could upgrade the spiritual vein. With such a large piece of earth essence, even if it was added to an earth spiritual vein of the first level, it would only take a few hundred years for the spiritual vein to reach the fourth level. Of course, the future of the spiritual vein would depend on its own luck. Refining the Kirin seal required the heaven-suppressing stone as the main body and the earth essence. Therefore, the amount of earth essence used was not much. With such a large piece of earth essence, there would still be some leftover after refining the Kirin seal 3 times. Suppressing his excitement, he controlled his doppelganger, Cui Ming, and used a magic tool to cut down the earth essence. He only cut down a 5-inch long piece, leaving behind a 3-inch long piece of the earth essence. By leaving behind a stubble, the earth essence could continue to grow. If he were to take away all of it, it would probably take 10,000 years for the earth essence to grow again. After taking the earth essence, Wang Daoyuan immediately controlled his doppelganger, Cui Ming, and walked out. With the earth essence in his hands, he could finally feel at ease. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense detected a wisp of black light drifting towards him. This wisp of black light contained a strange spiritual energy and spiritual sense. It also seemed to contain the power of some kind of law. He had seen Zhou Wan's minor divine ability, the Scarlet Phoenix Divine Fire. This thing did seem to be some kind of divine ability. If that was the case, he had already been targeted by a gold core devil cultivator or the devil race. Wang Daoyuan didn't have time to think about where he had exposed his weakness. He shot out a ball of Gui water death flame in an attempt to burn this wisp of black light. At the same time, he summoned the Dark Note Soul Burying Bell to defend against spiritual sense attacks. His spiritual sense was also controlling the 4 natal magic tools in his dantian. Once the target appeared, he would be able to attack at any time. When this wisp of black light came into contact with the Gui water death flame, it was immediately wrapped up. The spiritual sense within was directly burned away. The spiritual energy and the power of law were extremely strange. The Gui water death flame was actually unable to burn it away. After a few breaths, the wisp of black light dissipated. At this moment, a wisp of black spiritual energy flew towards him. This wisp of spiritual energy was extremely similar to the wisp of black light from before. It was also related to a minor divine ability. Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to be careless. He summoned the Black Tortoise Shield to protect himself. At the same time, he activated the Dark Note Soul Suppressing Bell. A long sword formed from spiritual sense and sound waves struck towards the wisp of black spiritual energy. Chapter 5:10. The attack from the Dark Sound Soul Burying Bell hit the black mass of spiritual energy. The long sword formed by divine sense and sound waves was shattered, but the black mass of spirit energy only weakened a little and continued to attack Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan was a little surprised. Under normal circumstances, the power of this black mass of spiritual energy should be slightly inferior to his own attack. But the result of the collision was the black mass of spiritual energy. This black mass of spiritual energy was too strange. Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to take it head-on and use the smoke escape to dodge. Although he couldn't completely dodge it, it was good to delay it. At this time, his spiritual energy had already transformed into spiritual fire, and the clouds condensed by the smoke escape were all turned into black flames. He controlled these flames and wrapped them around the mass of spiritual energy. Soon, the spiritual energy in the black mass of spiritual energy was completely burned away. With the Gui water death flame wrapped around it, the opponent's spiritual energy couldn't penetrate it. Without the control of spiritual energy, the remaining power in the mass of spiritual energy quickly dissipated. Fortunately, the Gui water death flame could burn spiritual energy and restrain this kind of probing trick. Otherwise, it would be troublesome. Wang Daoyuan was a little surprised. The spiritual power and spiritual sense contained in this spell was not much, but it was able to display an extremely strong strength. To do this, one had to rely on the power of law. Ordinary golden core cultivators could only comprehend the power of law and then use their spiritual energy to imitate the power of law to increase the power of their spells. They couldn't directly use the power of law to cast spells. Just by imitating, the increase in power was limited and couldn't reach the level of the black mass of spiritual energy. Generally speaking, those who could directly use the power of law were Yuanian cultivators. There were no Yuanian cultivators in Beiyuan Shouxian, so this person must have comprehended a minor divine ability. Golden core cultivators who comprehended minor divine abilities were like Zhou Wan, inheriting the legacy of their ancestors. This was equivalent to someone taking the law and putting it in her hands. Those who had comprehended lesser magical powers on their own were like blind cats that had stumbled upon a dead mouse. They had accidentally grasped the power of the laws. Even if he didn't know much about the power of law, he could still use it to cast spells, and its power would be much stronger than ordinary cultivators who could only look at it and imitate it. Without the power of laws, one's strength was on a completely different level. Wang Daoyuan was now using a lower level of strength to deal with a higher level of strength. Under such circumstances, they could only rely on their advantage in numbers to make up for the difference in quality. Of course, the difference in quality was not particularly large. Wang Daoyuan hadn't comprehended a lesser divine ability, so he couldn't use the power of laws. However, he still had a power that was close to a lesser divine ability, and that was the charm of the Purple Mansion anomaly. The Purple Palace realm phenomenon was closely related to lesser divine abilities. Comprehending the divine beast's charm was also a way to comprehend the laws. The power of a divine beast's charm was not as strong as a minor divine ability, but it was still stronger than that of an ordinary golden core cultivator. Moreover, this person should be a demonic cultivator or a demon. The 5 elements devil suppression seal had a restraining effect on devil cultivators and devils. This restraining effect could be said to be a kind of suppression of laws. The 5 elements demonic seal combined with the divine beast's charm was enough to put up a fight against an ordinary late-stage golden core fiendish cultivator. Of course, the opponent in front of him was not an ordinary cultivator, but one with lesser divine abilities. If this person was a late-stage golden core cultivator, it would be very difficult for Wang Daoyuan to leave alive. If he was a mid-stage golden core cultivator, he could rely on various methods to escape unscathed. If he was an early-stage golden core cultivator, he would have a chance to kill his opponent. This guy's concealment ability was extremely strong, and his spirit energy balls were instantly released, so he didn't leave too many traces. Wang Daoyuan used his divine consciousness to scan the surroundings a few times, but he still couldn't find his opponent. The divine beast's charm and the 5 elements demonic seal could not be exposed for the time being. As long as his opponent didn't appear, he would use his spirit fire to slowly exhaust him. The opponent released a few more spirit energy balls to probe, but they were all neutralized by Wang Daoyuan with the Gui water death flames. Then, a long black saber pierced out from the ground. Wang Daoyuan used the smoke escape to dodge and control the flames to attack the long black saber. This long black saber's power was much greater, and it took 3 breaths of time to completely neutralize it. Then a guy with a hooked nose and a black horn between his eyebrows appeared in front of Wang Daoyuan and laughed. A mere early-stage golden core cultivator unexpectedly has such ability. Which branch of demonic cultivator are you? Why can't I see it? This guy looked strange, and Wang Daoyuan could tell at a glance that he wasn't human. Of course, it was unlikely that he was a vicious beast or a demonic beast, as vicious beasts couldn't transform. Demonic beasts were also a group of iron, and few liked to play tricks, and there were no demonic beasts living in the southern wasteland. Looking like a human but not a human, and liked to play sneak attacks, then he could only be a remnant of the demon race. This demon cultivator was just casually probing, and he had an extremely strong concealment technique, so Wang Daoyuan couldn't see his cultivation level. Wang Daoyuan didn't reply, and directly used the water dragon technique with the Gui water death flames, splitting out 2 more than 10 zhang long flame black dragons to sneak attack this demon cultivator. The big black dragon turned into a water dragon armor to protect himself. This demon cultivator also condensed 2 black blades to sneak attack Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan used the water dragon prison to trap the 2 black blades. The Gui water death flames burned the power of spiritual sense, and the 2 black blades quickly dissipated. The demon cultivator also waved his hand to release 2 black lights to disperse the 2 water dragons. Wang Daoyuan laughed, "Although your little divine ability is powerful, these little tricks are useless against me, it's better to use the real thing." Before his voice fell, Wang Daoyuan used the smoke escape, condensing black flames all over the sky. But he didn't escape, just used the rootless fire of the Gui water death flames to monitor his every move, and consume his spiritual sense power. If this demon cultivator hit again, he could find his position through the flames. This demon cultivator also saw Wang Daoyuan's intention, and didn't hide his figure. The black horn between his eyebrows was constantly gathering spiritual power, preparing to attack with all his strength. Wang Daoyuan saw that this guy's cultivation was also at the early golden core stage. Now that he used all his strength, there was no way he could escape with the strong spiritual power fluctuations on his body. Wang Daoyuan summoned all his natal magic artifacts, condensed the 5 elements demon suppression seal, and suppressed the demon cultivator. This demon cultivator obviously didn't expect Wang Daoyuan to have such a trump card, and his face showed surprise. Then, he hurriedly released the unfinished spell. A black skull formed by black spiritual power bypassed the 5 elements demon suppression seal at an extremely fast speed, and went straight for Wang Daoyuan's forehead. This was a method of exchanging a life for a life. This spell could still be so flexible under the suppression of the 5 elements demon suppression seal, which caught Wang Daoyuan a little off guard. The 5 natal magic artifacts were still lacking the Kirin seal, and the combined 5 elements demon suppression seal couldn't be controlled with ease, so there was no time to help. This thing was too fast. If he didn't have a reliable defensive method, there was no point in using the smoke escape to stall for time. Instead, he would be even more passive. The 5 elements spirit fire flew out from Wang Daoyuan's forehead, constantly consuming the black skull's power. The Gui water death flame's effect of burning one's consciousness was not very effective against this all-out attack. It was just that the black skull's flying speed was greatly reduced after being enveloped by the spirit fire. In particular, the pure yang qi of the scarlet yang primordial fire had an obvious restraining effect on the black skull. Wang Daoyuan took the opportunity to use the smoke escape to dodge and stall for time as much as possible. He also increased the output of the scarlet yang primordial fire, and burned the black skull to ashes in a dozen breaths' time. When the black skull disappeared, it was only half an inch away from his forehead, and even more than half of the water dragon armor was broken. Wang Daoyuan was exceptionally envious of the fact that a minor ability that had yet to be fully unleashed had such power. On the other side, the demon cultivator was smashed by the 5 elements demon suppression seal. However, he seemed to have a defensive Dharma artifact on him, and Wang Daoyuan was distracted to save himself, so he didn't activate the 5 elements demon suppression seal with all his might. This guy wasn't smashed to death, but he was severely injured. Under the suppression of the 5 elements demon suppression seal, he couldn't move at all. The demon cultivator was too sinister, and Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to approach him easily. Instead, he used the Gui water death flame to envelop him, and the scarlet yang primordial fire on the outer layer. His previous attacks had been neutralized by the spirit fire, and now that he was severely injured and suppressed, there was no way he could break through the spirit fire. Chapter 5:11. Wang Daoyuan let out a sigh of relief. Golden core cultivators with minor abilities were indeed strong. The first time he fought against a minor ability, he almost lost his life. This demon had a minor ability that could be refined into a doppelganger. Using the doppelganger's panoramic perception, he could comprehend the laws. Although he couldn't directly comprehend the doppelganger's minor ability, it was still very beneficial for him to comprehend it. The doppelganger soul nurturing technique worked on all life forms with souls, and demons were naturally no exception. It was just that he knew too little about demons. It was hard to say which branch this guy belonged to. If he was of the Een demon branch, his soul might be stronger than his. If he had some sort of soul secret technique, he wouldn't be his opponent at all. Before refining into a doppelganger, it was best to exhaust his spiritual sense first. Controlling the Gui water hell flame, he entered his sea of consciousness. Through the Gui water hell flame, Wang Daoyuan saw what a demon's sea of consciousness looked like. It was pitch black all around, and there was no purple palace. In the center was a huge true demon phantom, a bit like the purple palace of a human cultivator. The true demon phantom held a transparent energy shield in its hands, with a black human figure inside. This should be the demon's soul, or demon soul. Wang Daoyuan controlled the Gui water hell flame to burn the transparent energy shield. The demon's soul urged its spiritual sense to resist, but it was quickly burned by the Gui water hell flame. Then, something similar to spiritual power poured into the sea of consciousness, blocking the Gui water hell flame. This should be the spiritual power cultivated by demons. It was very different from the spiritual power of humans and demons. Even for demon cultivators, their spiritual power was between righteous cultivators and demons, but closer to righteous human cultivators. He learned from his master that the 5 elements of human spiritual power didn't have much effect on demon spiritual power. But Yin and Yang were very effective against demon spiritual power. There was also the power of heaven's might and divine beasts, which had some restraining effect on demons. This was also an important reason why the 5 elements demon subduing seal could restrain demons and demon cultivators. The Gui water death flame didn't have much use for the demon race's spiritual power, but the scarlet yang true fire from before restrained the demon race's spiritual power. This demon race might be a Yin demon. The true fire of the scarlet sun contained pure yang qi, and it was related to the divine beast golden crow. It was natural that it could restrain the demon clan's spiritual power. He then followed the passage opened by the Gui water death flame and continuously poured the scarlet yang true fire into the demon's sea of consciousness. When the devil clan's spiritual power saw the scarlet yang real fire, it quickly dissipated. After the dissipation of the demon's spirit power, part of it was refined by the Gui water death flame. It seemed that this demon cultivator really was a Yin demon. After half a quarter of an hour, this guy's spiritual power was exhausted, and the Gui water death flame burned towards his devil soul. The huge true demon phantom moved and waved its hand to disperse the flames. Wang Daoyuan activated the 5 elements devil subduing seal. The vermilion bird fan and the black tortoise shield appeared in their true forms and forcefully entered the demon cultivator's sea of consciousness. The 2 mythological beasts, the vermilion bird and the black tortoise, charged toward the true demon projection. The true demon projection was extremely powerful, and the vermilion bird fan and the black tortoise shield were only of the 3rd grade. Their true forms were not strong enough. Wang Daoyuan infused divine charm into them and used his purple palace resonance. 2 against 1, they managed to suppress the true demon projection. The Gui water death flame burned towards the demon soul, and it quickly lost the ability to resist. To be safe, he decided to use the soul-severing blade to test the waters. The soul-severing blade slashed, and the demon's soul was indeed injured. Then, Wang Daoyuan condensed the soul-severing blade and slashed at the demon soul's forehead. He did not take out the soul fragment in the soul-nurturing pendant, but the soul fragment of Tu Yoming's clone. The soul fragment in the soul-nurturing pendant was left behind by a Foundation establishment cultivator. It was unlikely that it would succeed in controlling a golden core clone. It was more reliable to fuse a soul fragment that had been nurtured by the Purple Palace avatar. After the soul fragment was fused, Wang Daoyuan did not let down his guard. He called out Cui Ming from the formation, took the earth essence, and had him stand guard above. As for the demon clone, he continued to use the 5 elements devil subduing seal to suppress it. After the soul fragment was fully controlled, it would be stored in the spirit pearl. After Cui Ming explored the tunnel above, he didn't find any traces of other demons. 2 days later, the soul fragment successfully controlled the clone. From the demon's memories, he learned that this demon was called Devouring Soul, a soul-devouring demon of the Een demons. Soul-devouring demons' main method was to attack the soul. By devouring the opponent's soul, they could increase their own strength. What interested Wang Daoyuan was that this demon's memories contained a secret technique of the soul-devouring demon lineage, the soul-devouring technique. This secret technique could devour souls and increase the strength of one's own soul. At the same time, it could also repair the damage to one's own soul. It was useful even for golden core cultivators. This soul-devouring technique was very similar to the doppelganger soul-nurturing technique. The guy who created the doppelganger soul-nurturing technique most likely used the soul-devouring technique as a reference. With the soul-devouring technique as a reference, it was possible to make up for the doppelganger soul-nurturing technique's flaw of not being able to recover the soul. Through devouring souls' memories, he also understood some of the fiend race's situation. These fiend race remnants were all the remnant soldiers and defeated generals left behind when the fiend race invaded back then. They hid in the absolute heaven abyss and borrowed the black gas to deceive that group of human major powers. These few years, although the fiend race multiplied quite a bit, they also did not dare to show their faces at will. The array formation on the shore of the absolute heaven abyss had extremely strong killing effects on the fiend race. The majority of the fiends hiding in the absolute heaven abyss were unable to go ashore at all and could only struggle to survive below. The fiends of the fiend-resisting mountain were all powerhouses who escaped from the absolute heaven abyss back then. However, their days were not easy either. The Divine Weapon Pavilion and Tai Sword sex people frequently came to take care of them. Fiendish cultivators would also hunt fiends and use them to cultivate fiendish cultivation methods. This fiend-resisting mountain was still fiendish cultivators' territory. The fiend race was still lacking. And Devouring Soul's parents both escaped from the absolute heaven abyss. But they were already dead. He did not have any backing. Coming to hunt down Wang Daoyuan this time, he also came alone. With this, Wang Daoyuan set his mind at ease. At least, his whereabouts were not exposed. Devouring Soul's divine ability was still very powerful. It contained penetrating and devouring souls, two kinds of laws. His penetrating law was not like metal attributes' penetrating defense. Instead, it bypassed objects at an extremely fast speed. This law had a bit of the taste of spatial law. No wonder it could ambush him under the suppression of the 5 elements devil subduing seal. Fortunately, this penetrating law was only useful on rocks and other solid bodies. It was ineffective against spiritual fire. This was also the reason why that skeleton previously was restrained by spiritual fire. Withdrawing the 5 elements devil subduing seal, and putting the clone devouring soul back into the spiritual bead space. Just now, Cui Ming already probed the situation inside the array formation. There were no problems inside. This array formation was still intact and had not been exposed for several thousand years. It was considered a rare safe place. Now that his whereabouts were not exposed, he could refine the Kirin seal here. With the 5 life-bound magic artifacts complete, his strength could also improve by a lot. He should be able to defeat the average late-stage golden core, as well as middle-stage golden core with minor divine abilities. He could go to the heavenly/mountain range and explore the situation of the spiritual bead's birthplace. Wang Daoyuan entered the stone room where the earth essence was born and prepared to refine the Kirin seal. The Kirin seal was the core of the 5 elements devil subduing seal. Other than its own functions, it also needed to be connected with the tool patterns of the other 4 magic artifacts. The tool patterns were the most complicated. Moreover, it used 4th-grade materials and was the most difficult to refine. However, Wang Daoyuan was already a golden core cultivator. The 5 elements spiritual fire in his body had also become a 4th-grade inferior grade. Refining 4th-grade materials was not a problem. He drew out the dust-returning flame and began to refine the heaven-suppressing stone. He had obtained the heaven-suppressing stone 3 times in a row. It was more than enough to refine a Kirin seal. He took out the fist-sized heaven-suppressing stone that his master had given him. After softening it with the dust-returning flame, he forged it into the shape of the Kirin seal. Currently, the Kirin seal was only 4 inches square. After that, he used the dust-returning flame to refine the earth essence. He fused the melted earth essence into the Kirin seal. After the Kirin seal absorbed the earth essence, it gradually grew in size and eventually grew to 6 inches square. After forging it into shape, the next step was to store it in his body and use his divine sense to condense the tool pattern. After spending more than a year, he finally finished condensing the Kirin seal's tool pattern. With the 5 life-bound magic artifacts, the 5 elements devil-subduing seal was finally complete. Chapter 5:12. After refining the 5 elements demon-subduing seal, Wang Daoyuan was not in a hurry to go to the sky/mountain range. Instead, he continued to nurture his natal dermic artifacts. A natal dermic artifact had to be nurtured for a long time in order to unleash its powerful strength. Now that he had all 5 dermic artifacts, he could fuse them together and test the effects of the refinement. The 5 dermic artifacts were currently in his dantian, staying on the corresponding spirit power seeds and absorbing spirit power. Under Wang Daoyuan's control, the 5 dermic artifacts fused into one and turned into a 9-inch square seal. The seal entered his sea of consciousness. Wang Daoyuan fused the charm of the 5 elements divine beasts that he had comprehended and the power of his spirit consciousness into it. A year later, the entire 5 elements demon-subduing seal had been refined to the point where it could be controlled freely. The black tortoise shield and vermilion bird fan had also improved slightly, but they had not reached the point where they could advance. Although he often used his clone to execute minor divine abilities and had a deeper understanding of the power of laws, his spirit consciousness had improved. The power of using spirit power and spirit consciousness to imitate the power of laws had also increased slightly. However, Wang Daoyuan still had no clue about his own minor divine abilities. Without his ancestral battle constitution, comprehending minor divine abilities was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Now that he had a clone, it was like searching for a needle in a haystack. There was no way to count on this. It still depended on luck. There was no room for improvement in the short term. It was time to go to the birthplace of the Spirit Pearl. His clone had grown up on the demon-resisting mountain and was very familiar with the place. Wang Daoyuan left the cave and rode a cloud towards the east. According to Devouring Spirit's memories, he avoided a few dangerous places and did not encounter any danger. Along the way, he saw some lone golden core fiendish cultivators. However, they could not see through Wang Daoyuan's black demon robe and did not dare to make a move. From Devouring Spirit's memories, he learned that the black demon robe that Wang Daoyuan was wearing was refined from the wings of a black-winged demon. Black-winged demons belonged to the Yin demon lineage and were good at sneak attacks. Their wings were the protection of their bodies and could completely ignore the spirit consciousness of cultivators one level higher than them. The black demon robe was made from the wings of early-stage golden core black-winged demons. Therefore, this black devil's robe was able to block the detection of early Yuanian cultivators. A journey of over 20,000 kilometers was nothing to a golden core cultivator. Soon, they arrived near the Heaven/Mountain Range's main mountain range. Although he had been roaming around the Heaven/Mountain Range since he was 20 years old, this was the first time he had come into close contact with the main vein of the Heaven/Mountain Range. The height of the entire mountain range was over 30,000 meters. Apart from the 10,000 Rivers Valley, the Heavens and Abyss, and the 10,000 Corpse Taoist Master's Path, the only way to cross the mountain range was to enter the 9 heavens astral winds. Furthermore, the Heaven/Mountain Range was very wide. Even the narrowest region of the Wanchuan River was more than 5,000 kilometers wide. To travel 10,000 miles in the astral winds of the 9 heavens was not something a gold core cultivator could do. After arriving here, Wang Daoyuan felt as though he had left his hometown for many years and returned to it. Although the vegetation here was sparse and the ground was littered with rocks, he still felt a sense of familiarity. The place that was very attractive to him was inside the mountain, which was only a few hundred miles away from him. At this moment, the spiritual pearl in his violet palace began to tremble. He wished he could immediately rush out of his violet palace and drill into the mountain. With Wang Daoyuan's current cultivation, he could already control the movement of the spiritual pearl. However, he did not dare to release the spiritual pearl. After all, it was the main spirit vein of the entire cultivation world, a treasure that took countless years to nurture. He also did not stay in an absolutely safe place. Once he released his spiritual pearl, who knew how big of a commotion it would cause? He flew to the vicinity of the heaven/mountain range, which was also the shore of the heaven/mountain range. Although there was a large formation protecting it, there was still a faint black chi that spread over. After the black chi passed through the large formation, it quickly turned into extremely violent non-elemental spirit chi. This should be the reason why the spirit chi in the southern wasteland was so violent. However, the spirit chi here was really dense, comparable to the spirit chi at the treasured Cauldron Mountain. It was a pity that it was too violent. Even Wang Daoyuan, a golden core body refiner, did not dare to cultivate here. If he just stayed here, he could still barely endure it. No matter if it was fiendish cultivators or ferocious beasts, they were all unwilling to cultivate here. Therefore, this place was extremely quiet. Only in the formation, there would occasionally be fiends coming and going. These fiends dared to cross the large formation. Even if they did not die, they would not have much breath left. There was no need to worry. Back then, that sword split open the cave where the spiritual pearl was nurtured. The majority of the cave was still north of the absolute heaven abyss. That sword did not directly strike the spiritual pearl. It only carried a sharp chi that sliced the spiritual pearl apart. Right now, the location of the underground cave just happened to be on the north shore of the absolute heaven abyss. It coincided with the location where that sword split open. However, the cave was not exposed. To the south of the cave, there was still a mountain range that was dozens of miles long. It extended into the absolute heaven abyss, like a broken bridge. In the image that Wang Daoyuan saw when he opened his purple mansion, there was no such broken bridge-like mountain. It should have been formed later. On this mountain that was formed later, there were also dense formation patterns. The cave was sealed by the newly formed mountain. To enter the cave, one had to rely on digging. Of course, one could not dig openly. This heaven/mountain range had stood here for countless years. Back then, it was also the main battlefield against the fiend race. After experiencing countless great battles, there were definitely many rock cracks in the vicinity. After casually searching for a while, he found quite a few. Choosing a crack deep underground, he executed the earth escape technique, passing through 6,000 to 7,000 feet of rock strata before he escaped into the crack. Ever since the heaven/mountain range was born, it had always been an attributeless spirit vein. The spiritual energy in the mountain's rocks were also attributeless. Wang Daoyuan released all 5 types of spiritual fire, burning towards the location of the stone room. After the spiritual fire broke through to Tier 4, the speed of burning rocks also improved a lot. Advancing more than 10 miles in a day was not a problem. 2 months later, Wang Daoyuan arrived at the cave that nurtured the spiritual pearl. This place was not considered very big. The entire cave should originally be a hemispherical space with a diameter of more than 100 feet. However, there was a gap in the south. It should have been sliced open by that sword back then. The gap was blocked by rocks. Above the cave, there was a nearly transparent spirit vein crystal. Above the spirit vein crystal, there was even a stalactite-like spirit vein crystal pillar hanging down. This was the main spirit vein of Beiyuan Shuxin. Once damaged, it would affect the concentration of spiritual energy in the entire immortal cultivation world. In the center of the cave, there was a circular stone platform with a diameter of about 10 feet. In the center of the stone platform, there was a pit with a diameter of 1 foot, facing the spirit vein crystal pillar above. In the pit was a grayish-purple liquid. The color of this liquid was exactly the same as the color of the previous spiritual pearl. The spiritual pearl was nurtured by this liquid. Now it was still condensing this liquid. Could it be that the heaven/mountain range wanted to nurture another spiritual pearl? When the spiritual pearl was nurtured, it took the entire world countless years to condense. Now, with only Beiyuan Shuxian, it was impossible to nurture it. At this time, the spiritual pearl in Wang Daoyuan's sea of consciousness trembled violently, wanting to fly out. Wang Daoyuan wanted to put this liquid into the spiritual pearl's space. He used many methods, but he could not move this liquid at all. In desperation, he had to risk releasing the spiritual pearl. His divine sense controlled the spiritual pearl to move out of the sea of consciousness, and the spiritual pearl immediately fell into the pit on the stone platform. At this time, dark clouds began to appear in the sky outside. Rumbling thunder came from the dark clouds from time to time. The spiritual energy within a radius of tens of thousands of miles became violent. The grayish-purple liquid automatically merged into the spiritual pearl. After the spiritual pearl absorbed this liquid, the crack slowly shrank. After half a cup of tea's time, the liquid in the pit was completely absorbed. There was still a half-inch long crack on the spiritual pearl. At this time, the spirit vein crystal pillar above was constantly dripping with grayish-purple liquid. The entire heaven/mountain range began to shake, and the concentration of spiritual energy dropped significantly. This stone room was close to the border of absolute heaven abyss. Absolute heaven abyss was also affected. Close to the stone room, black gas surged. The heaven/mountain range extended into the broken bridge of absolute heaven abyss. It was crazily absorbing the black gas and merging into the spirit vein. Chapter 5:13. Wang Daoyuan sensed his clone in the space of the spirit bead, checking if there were any changes in the space. Everything in the space was normal, it was just that looking out from the space, it was gray with purple mist everywhere. South of absolute heaven abyss, under a giant plum tree. Two old men sat facing each other, a chessboard in front of them. At this time, the two were not paying attention to the chessboard, both looking towards the north. The black-robed old man frowned. "Old friend, today's situation is not right. Usually, a bit of movement would disappear in a moment. Why is today's movement getting bigger and bigger?" The white-robed old man also had a puzzled look. It's indeed not right. Such a big movement has never been seen in several tens of thousands of years. Finished speaking, he pinched his fingers and started calculating. A moment later, he sucked in a cold breath. Who has such great ability? Concealing my calculations and not leaving a trace. Finished speaking, he took out a turtle shell, put 3 copper coins in and shook it. After shaking it for 10 breaths of time, the copper coins fell on the chessboard. The copper coins kept on spinning on the chessboard, but did not stop. This time, the black-robed old man was also somewhat puzzled. What kind of major power is this, to be able to even interfere with your divination divine ability? With the 2 of our strength, we actually did not detect it at all. The white-robed old man took out a black and white compass. I'll use the yin-yang compass to see where this abnormal movement is coming from. Just as he was about to activate the compass, a small patch of dark clouds suddenly appeared in the cloudless sky. Subsequently, a thumb-thick purple gold lightning fell from the dark clouds, hitting the branch of the plum tree. This plum tree was also extraordinary. After being struck by lightning, it was actually not damaged in the slightest, only leaving a black mark on the bark. A few petals fell from the branch, landing on the chessboard under the tree. The white-robed old man sucked in a cold breath. Heavenly Tao is warning. This means to tell us not to meddle in this matter. What is the background of this person who is stirring up the storm? The black-robed old man picked up a chess piece and placed it on the chessboard. Who cares? It's not a bad thing. Otherwise, the heavens wouldn't obstruct your investigation. Finished speaking, the 2 people continued to play chess. Before his voice fell, that dark cloud in the sky instantly dissipated. Apart from leaving a bit of mark on the plum tree and shaking off a few petals, it was as if it never appeared. On the north shore of absolute heaven abyss, the concentration of spiritual energy was still continuously decreasing. An hour later, the concentration of spiritual energy had already dropped to the middle of the 4th tier. The demon-resisting mountain and other spirit veins were also somewhat unstable. The array formation that resisted absolute heaven abyss black gas all relied on these spirit veins to provide spirit energy. The spirit veins were unstable, and the formation was greatly disturbed, shaking violently. The formation was unstable, so its power was naturally greatly reduced. Some of the devil race became restless. Not long after, a few demon race cultivators couldn't hold back and tried to cross the formation. The offensive power of this grand array was also significantly weakened, allowing these few devil race cultivators to pass through the grand array without suffering any serious injuries. When the other demons saw this, they immediately followed suit. The second wave of devil race cultivators had just passed through the array formation when a few blood-red lightning bolts descended from the sky, turning the first few devil race cultivators into a pile of ashes. The second wave of devil race cultivators were scared witless. Most of them fled back to Heaven Abyss. A few who didn't believe in heresy fled in another direction, but they were all struck by the blood-colored lightning and turned into ashes. As for the demonic cultivators who fled back to Heavenly Abyss, there was no problem. Inside the cave, the speed at which the purple-gray liquid dripped from the spirit vein crystal became faster and faster. Wang Daoyuan used his divine sense to explore the cave he came from and discovered that the spiritual energy in these places were extremely thin. Releasing the clone spirit devouring from the space, he let him investigate the situation outside. Spirit devouring's law of penetration was very suitable for this job, and finished investigating very quickly. Only then did Wang Daoyuan know how much of a commotion the spirit beads caused. Fortunately, he did not attempt to move the spirit beads out of his sea of consciousness previously, otherwise, he would be completely exposed. Even now, it was not safe. The commotion caused by the spirit beads was seriously too big. The Divine Weapon Pavilion and Tai Sword Sect's duty was to guard the southern wasteland. They would definitely send people to check. If he delayed any longer, he might be exposed. However, the recovery speed of the spirit beads was still very fast. After another 2 hours, the cracks on the spirit beads were completely recovered. He carefully sensed the spirit beads and did not discover any problems. At this time, the spirit vein was still dripping with purple-gray liquid, and the spirit beads were also absorbing continuously. Trying to control the spirit beads, it was no different from before. He had long wanted to enter the space of the spirit beads with his physical body, but he had never had the chance. Now he could give it a try. With a thought, he wanted to enter the space of the spirit beads with his entire body. He did not expect to succeed. If he wanted to come out, his body would also come out of the space. The only limitation was that the spirit beads would cause a huge commotion outside. Only when it was placed in the sea of consciousness could the spirit beads stop. He wanted to let the clone keep the spirit beads in the sea of consciousness and hide in the space of the spirit beads to cultivate. Unfortunately, the clones were unable to keep the spirit beads in the sea of consciousness. If the spirit beads were not kept in the sea of consciousness, it would cause a huge commotion. If the spirit beads were kept in the sea of consciousness, he would not be able to enter. Wang Daoyuan did not have time to be depressed. Since the spirit beads had been completely repaired, continuing to absorb the gray-purple liquid would only be icing on the cake. But if he continued to delay like this, there would be a risk of being exposed. He gritted his teeth and kept the spirit beads in the sea of consciousness. The spirit devouring sensed that the commotion outside had calmed down in an instant, but the concentration of spiritual energy was much lower than before. However, it was also recovering quickly. Wang Daoyuan did not dare to stay here for long. He used the earth attribute magic to seal all the caves that he had dug earlier. Using the earth escape technique, he headed towards the west. It took him a day to return to the stone room where he had sacrificially refined the Kirin seal. He had just caused a huge commotion, so it was not good for him to make any big moves. It would not be too late to stay here for a while before returning to the treasure tripod mountain. After staying in the stone room for 2 days, the purple thunder evil punishing token in the universe ring vibrated. The only one who could activate the purple thunder evil punishing token from a distance was his master. It seemed that the divine weapon pavilion was quite concerned about the situation here. His master had actually made a trip here personally. He immediately left the cave and flew into the sky. Soon, he saw 2 auspicious clouds more than 100 miles north. Wang Daoyuan also immediately rode a cloud over. When he got closer, he realized that the 2 people were his master and swordless spiritual master. He went forward and bowed. "Greetings, master." "Greetings, swordless spiritual master." Daoist Lei Yan asked, "Daoyuan, do you know what caused such a huge commotion 3 days ago?" Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands. Replying to master, "After I found the earth essence, I have been in closed-door seclusion here to sacrifice the Kirin seal. 3 days ago, I felt the spiritual energy density suddenly drop, and the defensive formation of the absolute heaven abyss became unstable. I did not know what happened, so I did not dare to go out." Daoist Lei Yan smiled. "Looks like your luck is pretty good. Now that the 5 elements devil-subduing seal is gathered, your strength should be able to battle with the average late-stage Aurus core cultivator. Since you also do not know what happened, let's explore along the absolute heaven abyss." Wang Daoyuan and swordless spiritual master did not have any objections. Following the north shore of the absolute heaven abyss, they headed east. 4 hours later, the 3 people arrived near the sky/mountain range. The cave of the spirit-nurturing pearl was several hundred miles inside the mountain. Even a half-step Yuanying would not be able to discover anything with his divine sense. There were only some traces of the devil race being struck to death by lightning. The spiritual energy density was still somewhat low, but it had also recovered to the level of high-grade Tier 4. Other than that, they did not discover any abnormalities. Daoist Lei Yan asked, "Swordless, what do you think?" Swordless spiritual master pondered for a while and answered, "Martial uncle, I think that this huge commotion might have been caused by the devil race in the absolute heaven abyss. There are traces left behind by the devil race attacking the formation here. With such a huge commotion, it is very likely that a devil race above Aurus core appeared. The spirit veins of the sky/mountain range and demon-resisting mountain do not have any obvious abnormalities. I also cannot think of any other possibilities." Wang Daoyuan was just worrying about how to cover it up, and swordless spiritual master helped him think of an excuse. He naturally did not have any objections. He originally wanted to find a few devil cultivators to ask about the situation, but devil cultivators rarely appeared in this place, so he did not find anyone who knew. After tossing and turning for a few days, they did not obtain any useful information. The 3 people also left this place and returned to their respective sections. Chapter 5:14. Wang Daoyuan followed his master back to the treasured cauldron mountain. Lei Yan rode the purple thundercloud, and all the demonic cultivators along the way hid 2,000 miles away. Lei Yan's name had struck fear into the hearts of demonic cultivators many years ago. Now that he had broken through to the half-step Yuanying realm, no demonic cultivator dared to cause trouble in front of him. Their journey was smooth and they soon returned to the treasured cauldron mountain. Back at the cave abode, Lei Yan smiled. "Daoyuan, show me the 5 elements demon suppression seal." The name of the 5 elements devil suppression seal resounded like thunder in the southern wasteland. "I've always heard that the 5 elements demon suppression seal is the strongest golden core natal dermic weapon. I've always been unconvinced but never had the chance to see it for myself. Since you have all 5 natal dermic weapons, I'd like to see the power of the 5 elements demon suppression seal." Wang Daoyuan naturally wouldn't decline. He took out the 5 natal dermic weapons and combined them into the 5 elements demon suppression seal. Then, he even infused the charm of the 5 elements divine beast. Lei Yan nodded. "I can't help but be impressed. An inferior grade level 4 dermic weapon coupled with your early stage golden core cultivation can have such a powerful aura. Although you haven't comprehended any lesser abilities, with this 5 elements demon suppression seal, cultivators of the same level with lesser abilities won't be your match." Wang Daoyuan stayed at the treasured cauldron mountain for a few days and obtained the artifact talisman legacy. His master didn't know much about the talisman Dao, but he was able to create the purple lightning demon suppression seal. It wouldn't be impossible for him to create even stronger artifact talismans in the future if he studied the art of talismans. Through the channels of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, he understood the situation of the family. There was still no movement from the underworld sect, and the Wang family's affairs were going on as usual. Wang Daoyuan could tell that the underworld sect was waiting for him to return and discuss with him before deciding on the Wang family's position. This matter had to be resolved sooner or later, and it wasn't a good idea to keep delaying it. All these years, the family hadn't dared to expand their business, but the number of cultivators was still increasing rapidly. As time went on, the family wouldn't be able to hold on. The sooner he settled the matter with the underworld sect, the better the family could develop. After bidding his master farewell, he left the treasured Cauldron Mountain. As long as golden core cultivators were far away from the important industries of the various forces, no one would care about them. However, Wang Daoyuan did not dare to take this risk. His reputation was too great, and there were many people who had their eyes on him. Moreover, they had to pass through the Song Kingdom and the Thousand Spirit Sect's territory on their way back to Qingli County. Since the princess of the Kingdom of Song did not like him, the royal family of the Kingdom of Song would not treat him well either. If he flew back like this, he was really afraid that someone would ambush him. It would be safer to keep a low profile and take the Divine Weapon Pavilion's cargo flying ship. More than 20 days later, the flying boat arrived at Clear Glass City. He didn't stop at Clear Glass City, but instead rode on the 5-colored auspicious cloud and flew straight back to Jade Spring Peak. Many cultivators in the Clear Glass market also revealed envious gazes. Ever since the day of Wang Daoyuan's Purple Mansion Grand Ceremony, the Wang family had already become the undisputed overlord of the northern part of Qingli Prefecture. Now that he had formed his golden core, he was the only golden core cultivator from the underworld sect and even the entire state of Zhao. How the netherworld sect would deal with this matter would affect the fate of all the old families. After returning to the Jade Spring Peak, the clansmen were all extremely excited. After nearly 500 years, the Wang family had finally become a golden core family again. The cultivators and clansmen who had stayed on the Jade Spring Peak all came out to welcome them. After Wang Daoyuan said a few words, he dismissed the crowd. Afterwards, he entered the assembly hall together with his third brother Wang Daocheng. Wang Daocheng sighed emotionally. I never dreamed that you would form your golden core so quickly. Since young, you have been working hard to revitalize the family. In less than 200 years, our family went from having only 2 foundation establishment cultivators to 1 golden core cultivator, 3 Violet Palace Realm cultivators, and more than 30 foundation establishment cultivators. You are now a guest elder of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, and Dao Yin and Ming Ting have also joined the Divine Weapon Pavilion. The family's current strength is even stronger than when the old ancestor was still alive. That's right, when do you plan to arrange the Golden Core ceremony? Wang Daoyuan replied, I don't know. What our Wang family should do next will depend on the underworld sect's attitude. Let's wait a few days first. I reckon that before long, the underworld sect will send a letter. Let's talk about this after we've confirmed our Wang family's future status. After learning about the family's situation from his second brother, Wang Daoyuan returned to his cave and waited for the news from the underworld sect. 3 days later, a black cloud drifted over from the west of Jade Spring Peak. After the black cloud entered the range of 300 kilometers from Jade Spring Peak, Wang Daoyuan also left his cave and rode on the auspicious cloud towards the west. 100 kilometers to the west of Jade Spring Peak, he met the black cloud head-on. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, Subordinate greets Sect Master. Sect Master, please come to the mountain for a chat. Luo Jiuyo's personal visit was actually a bit unexpected. He originally thought that Luo Jiuyo was going to send a letter for him to go to the mountain gate. Luo Jiuyo nodded and didn't say anything. He followed Wang Daoyuan to Jade Spring Peak's assembly hall. After Luo Jiuyo took his seat, he said with a smile, I didn't expect you to form your golden core so quickly. You're a golden core cultivator less than 200 years old. After forming your golden core, the world bestowed you with heavenly flowers appeared. Our Netherworld sect is also very honored to have such a peerless genius. Wang Daoyuan said modestly, Sect Master is too kind. I just had a sudden realization. Luo Jioyo waved his hand and said, no need to be so modest. I heard that even the Divine Weapon Pavilion's Pavilion Master thinks highly of you and wants to accept you into the Divine Weapon Pavilion? Wang Daoyuan replied, after I passed the core formation Heavenly Tribulation, I used the world's bestowment to heal the old injuries of Master and Master Daoist Yunha's disciples. Therefore, Master Daoist Yunha wanted to accept me into the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Since I'm already an elder of the Netherworld sect, I naturally can't betray the sect and join the Divine Weapon Pavilion. In order to express his gratitude, Master Daoist Yunha made me a guest elder of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. I felt that with this guest elder status, it would be more convenient for the sect to do business with the Divine Weapon Pavilion in the future. Therefore, I agreed. I didn't ask for Sect Master's permission beforehand. Please forgive me. Luo Jioyo put on a magnanimous look and said, there's no need for that. I'm very gratified that you can refuse the Divine Weapon Pavilion's Pavilion Master's invitation for the sect. Being a guest elder of the Divine Weapon Pavilion is also beneficial to the Netherworld sect. What's wrong with that? But now that you've become a Golden Core cultivator, according to the sect's rules, you should be a Grand Elder or Deputy Sect Master. What do you plan to do next? This was to test Wang Daoyuan's attitude. Naturally, Wang Daoyuan couldn't reveal his thoughts casually. He thought for a moment and replied, I haven't been very involved in the sect's affairs these years, so I don't know much about these things. Plus, I formed my gold core too quickly, so I haven't thought about what to do after forming my gold core. Luo Jioyo smiled and said, I've also discussed this with the other golden core cultivators in the sect. We've come up with 2 solutions. One is to have all the cultivators of the Wang clan join the Netherworld sect. The sect will allocate a few spiritual mountains near the mountain gate to settle the cultivators of the Wang clan. In this way, the Wang clan will become an internal family of the Netherworld sect, and you'll also become the Deputy Sect Master. Currently, there's only one Deputy Sect Master in the sect. After I step down, Deputy Sect Master Gu's strength will be far inferior to yours, and you'll succeed as the Sect Master. After a few hundred years, the Wang clan's status in the sect will probably be higher than my Luo clan's. What do you think? When Wang Daoyuan heard this, he immediately understood that this was to make the Wang clan a local branch of the Netherworld sect. But the Wang clan's foundation was here. If they left their own mountain, wouldn't it be completely according to their wishes? Besides, how would the 300,000 ordinary members of the Wang clan be settled? The Netherworld sect wasn't as generous as Zhou Jingyuan, who directly sent flying warships to move people over. Luo Jioyo's words didn't mention the ordinary people at all. Once they reached the mountain gate of the Netherworld sect, the family's properties would be gone. Relying on these properties, the cultivators of the Wang clan would be treated much better than the ordinary disciples of the Netherworld sect. Without the support of these properties, the Wang clan wouldn't be able to give birth subsidies to their own cultivators, and the probability of cultivators appearing among their children would also be affected. Without the support of ordinary members, the number of cultivators appearing among their children would also decrease, and the number of cultivators in the next generation would definitely decrease sharply. After 3 or 4 generations like this, the Wang clan would basically be ruined. Chapter 5:15. As for taking over the position of Sect Master in the future, that was even more nonsense. The new Sect Master of the Underworld sect was indeed a Vice Sect Master, but there was already Gu Wangzong. When there were multiple Vice Sect Masters, the Supreme Elders needed to choose a new Sect Master. Gu Wangzong was from an old family with a good foundation, while Wang Daoyuan was from a subsidiary family, and he didn't cultivate the Underworld sect's lineage. It went without saying who the Supreme Elders would choose. Moreover, Luo Jioyo wasn't very old. He was only 700 years old, and could work for another 100 or 200 years. Luo Hongming from the Luo family was quite talented, and he was quite capable. He was already in the middle stage of the Zifu realm, and was not far from the late stage. It was quite possible for him to form his core in the next 100 or 200 years. At that time, he would be a strong competitor. The natives of the Underworld sect had been around since the establishment of the Underworld sect. They had controlled the power of the Underworld sect for so many years, so how could they agree to let the Wang family take away their benefits? No matter how sincere the Wang family was, they wouldn't treat the Wang family as their own. At most, they would be dogs for the natives. The real natives were happy and rewarded the Wang family with some leftovers. Wang Daoyuan thought for a while and replied, "Our ancestors have worked hard for hundreds of years, and there are hundreds of thousands of ordinary people. I don't dare to abandon them." Seeing that Wang Daoyuan didn't take the bait, Luo Jiuyo's face turned ugly. However, the Wang family had the magic weapon pavilion as their backer, so the Underworld sect didn't dare to use force. He sighed and said, "Since you don't want to give up the foundation of your ancestors, then you can be the supreme elder of the sect." The Wang family is located at the edge of the sky/mountain range, and there are often demon beasts. Now in the north of the mountain, the demon clan and half-demon clan are in a mess, and we need a strong person to guard it. The other golden core cultivators in the sect have to guard against the cruel Sun Palace and the Thousand Spirit sect, so they can't send anyone. You formed your core now, and it caused such a big commotion, so you're definitely not weak. I've decided to let you manage the central and northern parts of Qingli County, as well as the Golden Goose City and the north of the mountain. In the future, you'll recommend the guardian of these places. What do you think? Luo Jiuyo's meaning was also very clear. If the Wang family was not willing to integrate into the local faction, then they could forget about entering the decision-making level. In the future, the Wang family's status in the Underworld sect would be equivalent to a feudal lord with a fief. They would have their own sphere of influence and great autonomy. However, this position was not given for free. One had to pay a price. The central and northern parts of Qingli County had to face the heaven/mountain range. Jinyan City and Guiyan Market had to guard against Shanbei. The Wang family had to help the Underworld sect block the enemies from both sides. If they could block them, the Wang family would be a powerful force. If they couldn't stop him, the Wang clan would be nothing more than cannon fodder. Of course, the Netherworld sect handing these places over to the Wang clan was not giving up on them. Even a feudal lord had to listen to the orders of his superiors. Wang Daoyuan had the right to manage it, but the territory still belonged to the Netherworld sect. It was just that the Netherworld sect didn't have direct jurisdiction over it and didn't intervene in the general affairs. The properties of the Netherworld sect in these places naturally belonged to the sect. He still had to continue doing business with the demonic beasts and half-demonic beasts at Guiyan Market. If the Netherworld sect issued a conscription order, the families in the Wang family's territory would still have to respond. Although the Netherworld sect had lost some power, their business would not be affected. They didn't need to personally send people to guard these places. The manpower saved could be used to develop more properties. The old men of the Netherworld sect were really good at calculating. They were willing to give up the trade route of Guiyan Market, but not the southern part of Qingli County. The southern part of Qingli County was close to the Wanchuan River, an important trade route, and there was also the Wanchuan Market. The annual income of this market alone exceeded that of the 4 markets that the Wang family was about to take over. Moreover, across the Wanchuan River in the southern part of Qingli County was the territory of the Thousand Spirit sect. The Netherworld sect was also afraid that the Wang family would collude with the Thousand Spirit sect, so they didn't dare to give this land to the Wang family. All in all, the Netherworld sect had lost some power and solved the threat of the Wang family to the local faction. At the same time, they had also gained some benefits. For the Wang family, they had to pay a huge price in exchange for autonomy. What the Wang family lacked the most was autonomy. They had had an excess of resources for many years. Ever since the matter of Wang Daoyuan establishing the Purple Mansion, the Wang family had always been afraid to expand their business. Now that the Netherworld sect had lifted the restrictions, the Wang family could just let loose and do big things. The possibility of wanting more power was not too high. However, Wang Daoyuan still had to fight for it. He cupped his hands at Luo Jiuyo and said, this subordinate is willing to take on this burden. It's just that I still have some small requests. Seeing Wang Daoyuan agree to the second suggestion, Luo Jiuyo also heaved a sigh of relief. No matter what, the Wang family could not threaten the interests of the Netherworld sect's local faction in the short term. He nodded and said, "If you have any suggestions, feel free to say them. If it's a small matter, I can agree now. If it's a big matter, I need to go back and discuss it with the other Grand Elders." Wang Daoyuan said with a smile, "This subordinate has two requests. First, the Wang family has developed the heaven/mountain range these few years and produced a lot of resources. Our current business can't swallow up these resources. Therefore, we want to expand our business to the Wanchuan market. Second, here at the heaven/mountain range, it's already been 500 years since the last beast tide. The interval between two beast tides generally doesn't exceed 600 years. The next beast tide can happen at any time. Right now, the situation in Shanbei is quite unstable. Currently, I'm the only golden core guarding it. It's inevitable that I'm stretched. Sect Master, please allow the Wang family to build flying warships so that we can deal with the demon beasts and protect the sect's territory." Hearing this, Luo Jiuyo pondered. There was no need to consider the first condition. Doing business was nothing. However, the second condition was a little difficult for him. The group of golden core cultivators came up with this idea in order to exhaust the Wang family's strength. If the Wang family was allowed to build flying warships, the Wang family's losses would be greatly reduced. However, if he did not agree, what if the Wang family did not accept this condition? He thought for a long time before answering. The first condition is not a problem. I can agree to it now. However, the second condition is a little difficult. The flying warships are of great importance. I can't make a decision easily. I need to discuss it with the other Grand Elders in the sect. Now, what I can make the decision is to remove all restrictions on the Wang family on the flying warships. When he said that he could not make a decision and needed to discuss, he could confirm that he did not agree. As for the flying warships, Wang Daoyuan did not have much hope. Getting the promise to remove the restrictions on the flying warships was a big gain. How much difference could there be between a flying warship and a flying warship? The formation used for the core components was the same. The flying warships were made of better materials, faster, and equipped with offensive and defensive artifacts. There was not much difference between them and a flying warship. Change the name to Battle Flying Warships. Would the Netherworld sect inspect the Wang family's flying warships for such a small matter? Wang Daoyuan nodded. "I have no objections. I'm willing to accept this appointment." After solving the problem of the Wang family's status, Luo Jiuyo was relieved. He chatted with Wang Daoyuan for some other small talk before leaving Yuchuan Peak on a cloud. Half a month later, the Netherworld sect solemnly announced a piece of news. First, it was the adjustment of the territory under their jurisdiction, splitting Qingli County. The southern part of Qingli County was merged into Heian County. The central and northern parts of Qingli County, together with Jinyan City, formed Yannan County. Jinyan City was located at the border between Qingli County and Heian County. It had always been under the jurisdiction of Heian County, but now it was included in Yannan County. When this news came out, the various forces under the Netherworld sect were a little confused. The Netherworld sect had never set up the position of governor, and the counties were not under unified management. Adjusting the territory of the counties was not a big deal. Was there a need to announce it solemnly? A few days later, another important news came out. Wang Daoyuan of the Wang family formed his core and became the 6th Grand Elder of the Netherworld sect. The sect master appointed Wang Daoyuan as the military advisor of Yannan County, with full authority to manage all the affairs of Yannan County. When this news came out, the various families understood what was going on. They were going to divide the land. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.